हाँ आ गए हैं 34, 44, 45 हो रहे हैं काफी। अरे विनीत जी।
यस सर।
हाँ जैसे कोई हैंड शो करता है वो मुझे नहीं दिखाई दे रहा है, तो वो कैसे दिखेगा मुझे?
सर आपको दिख रहा होगा ना, आप एक बार पार्टिसिपेंट पे क्लिक करिए नीचे।
एक मिनट, पार्टिसिपेंट पे क्लिक करूं?
ऊपर ऑप्शन एक पार्टिसिपेंट विंडो खुल जाएगी।
अटेंडीज।
अटेंडीज।
अच्छा, तो इसमें जिसका हाथ है वो दिख जाएगा।
Yes, sir. And now you can allow him to talk. There is an option allow him to talk. So his mic will be enabled.
और ये डिसेबल कैसे करूंगा मैं?
वापस वहाँ पे ऑप्शन आ रहा है, जैसे रिमूव परमिशन
अच्छा
टॉक।
ठीक। मैं करता हूँ अरुण जी, अभी आपसे बात करता हूँ। जो लोग रजिस्टर्ड हैं वो प्लीज मेंबरशिप नंबर नहीं लिखें, क्योंकि वो ऑलरेडी डेटा है। अब आपने लॉग इन कर लिया है तो आपको अटेंडेंस मिलेगी। I would like to speak to everybody. Please do not write your name and membership number, as once you have registered and logged in, it is already with the study circle. Nishchal, you can open your video. तो सर स्टार्ट करें? बत्रा सर स्टार्ट करें? आपकी आवाज नहीं आ रही, आप म्यूट हो गए।
प्लीज सर, प्लीज प्लीज, मैंने कर दिया था म्यूट। मैं आप बात कर रहे थे जी, प्लीज।
हाँ विजय जी।
हाँ हाँ मोहन जी वेलकम।
हाँ जी, मैं आ गया हूँ, मैं ऑफिस पहुंच गया हूँ, मैं रास्ते में था।
वेरी गुड वंडरफुल।
आज बत्रा जी को हमने ना बड़े दिनों बाद याद किया है, उसके लिए तो पहले तो ये माफी की बड़े दिनों बाद सर को याद किया है।
हाँ 7-8
सर को
महीने हो गए।
सर को 3-4 दिन पहले ही फोन किया था, तो सर ने इमीडिएटली हाँ भर ली। ये तो देखो इनकी हमेशा एक ग्रेटनेस है कि जब भी रिक्वेस्ट करते हैं फौरन समय दे देते हैं
बिल्कुल
हमारे।
उनका प्यार है, उनका बड़े भाई हैं उसको बिल्कुल
आज स्टडी सर्कल को जो शुरुआती डेज में इन्होंने चलाया है, इन्हीं के कारण चल पाया, हम जहाँ भी पहुंचे आज इसका बहुत बड़ा रोल है।
जी जी जी।
और अब कोशिश करेंगे कि इस तरीके के प्रोग्राम हम आगे कंटिन्यू रहे स्टडी सर्कल के। बट विजय जी, कुछ लोगों का कहना है कि ऑनलाइन की बजाय फिजिकल करो, बट मैं ये मानता हूँ फिजिकल में ना टाइम बहुत ज्यादा होता है, हमारे बजाय स्पीकर्स का टाइम ज्यादा लगता है।
बिल्कुल ये
दादा
बात
जी की फिजिकल प्रोग्राम होता है तो बत्रा जी से मुश्किल हो जाता है, क्योंकि 3 दिन के लिए कल कहीं बाहर जा रहे हैं तो मुश्किल हो जाता है। स्पीकर्स को, हमारे से ज्यादा प्रॉब्लम स्पीकर्स को हो जाती है।
बिल्कुल ये बात
क्या
तो
है
बिल्कुल
कि
सही है।
रियल
क्योंकि
टाइम स्टडी तो सर आजकल ऑनलाइन ही हो पा रही है।
हाँ और
तो
जितना
ये है कि मैक्सिमम प्रोग्राम ऑनलाइन हो, कभी कभी हम फिजिकल भी कर लिया करें।
काफी टाइम भी वेस्ट होता है चलने फिरने में,
हाँ जी, हाँ जी,
लेकिन फिर भी कभी ना कभी थोड़े दिनों बाद हम लोग फिजिकल करेंगे,
हाँ जी, हाँ जी,
जिससे लोगों को सहूलियत लगे
जी जी,
और भाईचारा तो बढ़ता ही है।
राइट।
तो
तो
मैं
और 5-4 मिनट अपन प्रोग्राम, कितना टाइम हुआ है अभी?
305।
हाँ, और 5 मिनट लगा लेते हैं ताकि लोग अभी आ ही रहे हैं।
अच्छा हाँ ठीक है।
3:10 पे स्टार्ट कराएंगे जब तक। और बत्रा जी का टॉपिक बड़ा अच्छा है। आजकल लोगों को इनपुट को लेके बड़े इश्यूज रहते हैं।
बहुत इश्यूज है जी।
हाँ,
कैश लेजर तो देते हैं, क्रेडिट लेजर में बहुत दुखी करते हैं।
नहीं, हर जगह एटीट्यूड है ना जी, मेरा जो मेरे पास आया है वो तो मुझे दे जाओ।
एकदम लेक्चर में 3 से 5।
एटीट्यूड बिल्कुल मोहन जी, अभी क्योंकि क्या है कि अभी भी हर चीज फिजिकल है।
हाँ जी, हाँ जी।
रजिस्ट्रेशन से लेके बीच में जितनी भी फाइलिंग ऑफ रिटर्न्स हैं, नोटिसेस हैं, क्वेरीज हैं,
हाँ,
हर चीज में फिजिकल ऑफिस जाना पड़ता है। और ऑफिसर्स का एटीट्यूड अभी भी बहुत ही हाई हैंडेड है।
जी जी जी। अभी लोग ज्वाइन कर रहे हैं, 3:10 पे स्टार्ट कर देंगे ब्रजेश जी,
हाँ हाँ बिल्कुल।
है ना? आप फिर स्टार्ट कर देना 3:10 पे फॉर्मली, जब तक आप इसको।
बत्रा जी हमारे हमारे बड़े भाई इतने अच्छे स्पीकर हैं, इंडियन रिनाउंड हैं, पहले डीवैट में, उसके बाद अब जीएसटी में। बहुत अच्छा उनका प्रेजेंस है, जिसका लाभ हम मेंबर्स को बार बार मिलता रहता है। और सबसे अच्छी बात यह कि मैं कभी भी कोई क्वेरी, कोई मेंबर पूछता हूँ, पर्सनली मेरा एक्सपीरियंस रहा है कि मैं कोई भी क्वेरी पूछता हूँ तो सर बिल्कुल तुरंत उसको जवाब देते हैं। और उनके, मैं भी प्रोफाइल देख रहा था, अपडेशन भी बहुत है, बुक्स को बार बार अपडेट करते हैं। और मुझे बड़ी खुशी होती है जब मैं किसी भी जीएसटी ऑफिसर के पास जाता हूँ, चाहे दिल्ली हो या गुड़गांव हो, तो ईटीओ है या डिप्टी कमिश्नर है, मैंने कई जगह उनके लोगों को उनकी किताब को खोल के रेफरेंस करते हुए देखा है। और बड़ा वो सिंप्लीफाइड मानते हैं कि कितनी अच्छी तरह से विद रेफरेंसेस एंड एग्जांपल्स एक प्रैक्टिशनर्स की लाइफ को बहुत आसान किया है। अरुण चौहान जी कुछ बोलना चाह रहे थे। हाँ अरुण जी, कुछ आप बोलना चाह रहे हैं, बताइए। अरुण जी मैंने आपको अनम्यूट कर दिया है, आप बताइए।
मॉर्निंग सर। सर एक्चुअली वो सॉरी, माफी चाहूंगा, सेटिंग का नहीं पता था, वो गलती से मुझसे
अच्छा
क्लिक हो गया था। बाकी सर टॉपिक बहुत अच्छा है। आज बड़े सुबह से अलार्म लगा के बैठे हुए हैं कि टॉपिक नहीं छूटना है।
नहीं नहीं, बहुत बढ़िया टॉपिक है। और क्या करें, अथॉरिटीज इसका बहुत ज्यादा मिसयूज भी कर रही हैं। और एसएससी का सही माने में पैसा जो रिफंड होना चाहिए वो भी रिफंड नहीं होता है। और हर रिफंड में आपको मालूम ही है वो कितना उनकी अपनी मर्जी चलती है। ये परेशानी तो रहती है।
सर अपने गौतम बुद्ध नगर में तो जीएसटी नंबर लेना पहाड़ तोड़ना जैसा हो गया है, जीएसटी नंबर तक नहीं मिल पा रहा है। डिपार्टमेंट जाओ कुछ दे दो तो काम हो जाएगा, अदरवाइज नहीं हो रहा है हर
हाँ,
तरीके से।
7 दिन में 10 दिन में जो आ जाना चाहिए वो अपने आप नहीं आता है।
हाँ
ये परेशानी तो है।
कृष्ण जी, मैं एक रिक्वेस्ट करना चाहूंगा। You can ask all the participants if they had any question in mind. या तो वो हैंड रेस करके उसे इशू कर दें या चैट बॉक्स में लिख दें, so that I can structure my orientation where their questions are already answered.
हाँ बहुत बढ़िया, सर ने बहुत अच्छी बात करी है कि आईटीसी से रिलेटेड प्लीज थोड़ा सा टॉपिक रिलेटेड ही पूछेगा। आईटीसी से रिलेटेड कोई भी क्वेश्चन आपको पूछना है चैट बॉक्स में लिख लीजिए, जिससे कि सर अपना प्रेजेंटेशन जो है उसको अलाइन कर सके। बाद में उन क्वेश्चंस का आंसर देने की जगह ये बहुत अच्छा रहेगा कि सर के डेलिब्रेशन में ही वो क्वेश्चंस आंसर हो जाएंगे। तो प्लीज अपना अपना क्वेश्चंस जो है वो चैट बॉक्स में आप रेज करिए।
ब्रजेश जी शुरू कर सकते हो आप।
हाँ हाँ।
टाइम हो गया।
तो मैं सारे सेंट्रल दिल्ली स्टडी सर्कल के बिहाफ पे मैं सब लोगों को वेलकम करता हूँ कि आज इतने अच्छे टॉपिक पर आप लोग आए हैं और इस वेबिनार को आप अटेंड कर रहे हैं। और एक विशेष अभिनंदन अशोक बत्रा जी भाई को कि वो आए, उन्होंने हमारा इनविटेशन स्वीकार किया और हम सब मेंबर्स को अपना लेक्चर डिलिब्रेशन देने के लिए वो स्वीकार किया। हम सब उनसे आभारी हैं कि वो अपना इतना वास्ट नॉलेज हम सबसे शेयर कर रहे हैं। तो फॉर्मल वे में मैं एक, जबकि कहते हैं कि दिए को रास्ता दिखाना बड़ा मुश्किल है, तो हमारे सीए प्रोफेशन के वो ऐसे दिए हैं, एक चिराग हैं कि जिनके बारे में इंट्रोडक्शन करना आसान काम नहीं है। लेकिन फिर भी मैं नए मेंबर्स स्पेशली उनके लिए या पुराने मेंबर्स की याददाश्त ताज़ा करने के लिए एक बार फिर से उनका मैं एक प्रोफाइल डिस्कशन करूंगा। तो अशोक जी हैं 1981 में उन्होंने सीए का एग्जाम पास किया और 82 से आज 40 साल हो गए, 4 डिकेड्स हो गए उनको प्रैक्टिस के लिए। तो मैं उनकी बहुत बहुत बधाई देता हूँ इस बात के लिए। और 2009 में उन्होंने लॉ किया और श्री राम कॉलेज ऑफ कॉमर्स जो दिल्ली यूनिवर्सिटी के सबसे रेपुटेड कॉलेज है कॉमर्स का, उसके वो एलुमनाई 74 से 77 तक वो रह चुके हैं। अब डीवैट पे सर ने बहुत अच्छा काम किया हुआ है, सर्विस टैक्स और अब जीएसटी में वो 40 साल से ज़्यादा वो टैक्स कंसल्टेंसी में रहे हैं और 15 साल से वो लिटिगेशन मैटर्स को डिस्कस करते हैं। बहुत सारे केसेस उन्होंने प्रोफेशनली रिप्रेजेंट करे हैं और उनका जजमेंट उनके फेवर के, उनके क्लाइंट्स के फेवर में वो रिपोर्ट हुए हैं। बहुत सारे प्रोमिनेंट लॉ जर्नल्स में उन केसेस का रेफरेंसेस है और सर ने बहुत सारे आर्टिकल्स लिखे हुए हैं, बहुत सारी किताबें 2004 से वो लिख रहे हैं। तो जीएसटी लॉ एंड प्रोसीजर के 6th एडिशन भी अब उनका निकल आया है। जीएसटी ऑडिट एंड एनुअल रिटर्न पर कई एडिशन निकल चुके हैं और जीएसटी रेडी रेकनर पर भी 6th एडिशन उनका अब निकल चुका है। एक सबका विश्वास लीगेसी डिस्प्यूट रेजोल्यूशन स्कीम 2019 पर भी उनकी बुक लिखी हुई है और बहुत सारी किताबें डीवैट पे लिखी हुई हैं। 12 साल से वो लिखते चले आ रहे हैं। करीब 1400 से ज्यादा सेमिनार्स एंड कॉन्फ्रेंसेस on indirect tax he has organized, he has chaired, उससे स्पीकर रह चुके हैं। बहुत सारे इंस्टीट्यूट जैसे अपना इंस्टीट्यूट है, कंपनी सेक्रेटरी इंस्टीट्यूट है, चैम्बर ऑफ कॉमर्स, ट्रेड एसोसिएशन, नेशनल एकेडमी ऑफ कस्टम्स, indirect taxes and narcotics. Throughout India he has been making a lot of presentation और बेस्ट फैकल्टी अवार्ड भी इनको मिल चुका है, सर्टिफिकेट कोर्स ऑन डायरेक्ट टैक्सेस। एंड यूनियन बजट पे भी बहुत सारे टॉक, जब भी बजट आता है तो हम सर से रिक्वेस्ट करते हैं कि वो मेरे हिसाब से तो हर बजट पे वो 50-100 सेमिनार्स हर जगह कम से कम देते ही हैं। तो आज हमारे सबको मौका मिला है कि हम अशोक जी से डायरेक्ट उनकी बात सुने और आईटीसी पे उनके विचार जाने। अब मैं सर से रिक्वेस्ट करता हूँ कि वो अपना सेशन स्टार्ट करें।
Thank you, Brajesh ji. Thank you, Mittal ji. At the outset, I would like to thank the study circle for providing me this opportunity, wherein I can share my views on a very important topic of input tax credit. Friends, I have told Brajesh ji, who has already communicated to you, in case you had any query, you can write it to the chat box or you can raise your hand so that those queries can be answered while delivering the deliberation itself. So there will not be any wastage of time when we have to answer those queries. So friends, now I am sharing my screen with all of you. I am sure my screen is visible to you. Today's topic, input tax credit. Basically ये आत्मा है जीएसटी की। One of the objective for introduction of GST was that there has to be a seamless credit. Of course, we understand when we look at the provisions, then this objective has not been achieved fully but substantially. For example, when I import certain goods and pay custom duty, I am not eligible for that credit. Secondly, there are a lot more conditions in section 62 which will be delivering and deliberating today. And finally, there are block credits in section 17 subsection 5 which contain 9 subclauses. So this objective has been substantially achieved but not fully achieved. Friends, now because the department has become active and professionals are coming to me, now they are raising question with regard to cross charge. I will also touch upon that because that is also a part of credit, why this cross charge provision was being implemented. But before we do that, now let us start our journey to understand the input tax credit. What is input tax credit? Of course, it has been defined in the law, but before we go to the definition as provided in the statute, let us all understand, this is the tax which I have paid to the supplier from whom I am receiving the services as a recipient. And that amount of tax I have not claimed as an expense in profit and loss account, or in cases in relation to purchase of capital goods, I have not capitalized it. If I expense that amount or I capitalize that amount along with the cost of the asset, then there is no tax credit which is available to me. Non-claim of ITC certainly result into huge loss. Barring the income tax benefit, it is 100% loss. And claim of excess credit is also a problem because it can result into demand of tax, interest and penalty. And as you all know that under section 74, now the adjudication period is after 5 years on the relevant date. So it is almost 6.5 year period. So the 100 rupees with interest comes out to be roughly 320 rupees. Not only that, friends, you will also appreciate that there are certain supplies on which I am liable to pay concessional rate of tax on the condition that I does not avail the ITC, or I avail the ITC in a limited manner. For example, in the case of tour operator, I can avail the credit only in respect of the services supplies which are from the same line of business. Restaurant, I am not entitled to claim any credit in case I want to pay tax at 5%. So inadvertent wrong claim of credit can result into a huge liability. Let us say a restaurant person who is having a turnover of 3 crores has to claim the credit. He has not to claim the credit and his tax liability is only 15 lakh. Maybe his accountant has inadvertently taken a wrong credit. So the department can take a stand. Now you have taken the credit, you are not eligible for the concessional rate and your demand may be credited at 12%, but giving you the benefit of that tax credit which has been availed by you, which can be very minuscule. So friends, this is the significance of tax credit. If I don't claim, as a chartered accountant, मैंने 100 रुपए का टेलीफोन का इनवॉइस लिया, उस पर 18 रुपए जीएसटी था और मैंने 18 रुपए जीएसटी रिकवरेबल को डेबिट करने की बजाय उसको एक्सपेंस कर दिया. यू कैन अंडरस्टैंड कि मुझे जो लायबिलिटी है, जो मेरे क्लाइंट, जो मैंने जीएसटी देना है फॉर द सप्लाईज पेड टू माय क्लाइंट्स, लेट अस से 100 रुपीज ऑन विच 18 रुपीज द लायबिलिटी और 1000 रुपीज 180 इज द लायबिलिटी, तो मुझे 180 जमा कराने पड़े. और अगर मैंने वो क्रेडिट लिया होता 18 रुपए का तो मुझे 165 रुपए जमा कराने पड़ते. सो ऑफ कोर्स यू कैन आर्ग्यू कि अगर मैं 118 रुपए इनकम टैक्स में लेता हूं तो मेरी इनकम टैक्स की लायबिलिटी में वो खर्चा 118 का मिलेगा, पर अगर मैं क्रेडिट लेना चाहता हूं तो मुझे खर्चा उसका 100 रुपए का मिलेगा. आई एग्री टू दैट एक्सटेंट इनकम टैक्स बेनिफिट इज अवेलेबल, बट देन non-claim of credit or excess claim of credit, both are very dangerous. We need to be very, very careful about it. This GST concept, input and credit concept in GST is absolutely on a different footing as compared to the rest of the law. If we talk about central excise, then you are eligible for the credit on the input used directly or indirectly in relation to the manufacture of final product. Service tax, you are entitled for the credit when it is used for providing the output service. And in VAT, the credit on purchase was available if that material is being sold. Therefore, in GST regime, this credit has been given a very wide color. As I told you, if you look at the pre-GST era, then your credit was restricted to the manufacturer's provision of service or sale. Now in the GST law, your credit is not restricted to the taxable event. but you are eligible for the credit if it is in the course of business. And in order to make it wide, they have further said in the course or furtherance of business. And it is not that you are using it, as was the concept in the restaurant law. In GST, even if you intend to use it, the credit is available. So this is very wide concept and a different concept as compared to pre-GST. And now most of the chartered accountants are dealing with this subject. So I think you'll be able to appreciate, because now it is more than 5 years that the GST was implemented. When we come to the statutory provisions governing the field, then it is chapter 5, wherein section 16 to 21 deals with the provision of tax credit, which we intend to discuss today if the time permit. Then the other section which is really important is section 155. In my humble opinion, this is the most important section, wherein the department has very smartly shifted the onus on the claimant of the ITC. The burden of proving that you are eligible for the ITC is on the person who is claiming the credit. Unlike section 74, we all understand that the show cause notices are issued in GST either under section 73 or 74. If I talk about GST, then in case there is a short payment of tax, non-payment of tax, erroneous claim of refund, or wrong availment or utilization of credit is due to fraud, willful misstatement and suppression, the section 74 is applicable. But there, the burden is on the department to prove that this non-payment, etc., is due to fraud, collusion, willful misstatement. As contrast to that, when I'm claiming the benefit of ITC, the burden has been shifted to me under section 155, and that screen is absolutely before you. Then friends, section 49 is very important, which deals with the payment of tax through, and then section 41, which deals with the availment of credit. So we were dealing in all these sections. If we look at from accounting point of view, then tax credit is nothing but a current asset which can be used for the discharge of tax liability, but not for the payment of interest, penalty, fee or any other amount. टैक्स क्रेडिट को टैक्स की पेमेंट के लिए तो यूज कर सकते हैं, लेकिन इसको इंटरेस्ट पेनल्टी के लिए नहीं कर सकते. अभी एक कंट्रोवर्सी अराइज हुई जो पहले इशू सेटल्ड था, whether the pre-deposit which I am supposed to make for filing my appeal under section 107 to the commissioner or 112 to the honorable tribunal, whether this tax credit can be used for the purpose of making pre-deposit. Odisha High Court in the case of Jyoti Construction ruled against, then came Bombay High Court in favor of the assessee, and then Allahabad High Court. Bombay High Court has considered the view taken by the Odisha High Court, distinguished that judgment. What will happen to the appeals in which we have already paid the tax through ITC? I think the department need to clarify this issue, because otherwise the fate of a lot of appeals will be in problem. So, in my humble understanding, pre-deposit can be made through tax credit. Now, what is input tax? Before we do that, I think there are questions. Can you please enlighten the circular number and date of the allowability of ITC 2 rupee? So it is not 2 rupee, it is a condition. If you go to the rate of tax notification, you will find they have said rate is 5%. Then they have given condition. In that condition column, you will find that they have mentioned that you cannot claim the credit except for in the same line of business. Then there is another question. For financial year 17-18, supplier has uploaded the bill but forgot to report the cess amount in those bills. Further, the receiver has surrendered a GST number in April 2018. So supplier was not able to amend those bills also. Now officer is not giving credit of the cess amount. What could be the remedy? Okay, it is a vested right, cannot be taken away so easily. If the department is not agreeing with that, of course, we have to litigate the issue. You can only try to convince them by quoting the relevant provisions and the case law. Rest, when it comes to department, we can't help it. Now, friends, moving further, what is the subject matter of credit? It is input tax, which has been defined in section 262, yani clause 62 of section 2. It includes IGST, the tax paid under reverse charge. Number of times a question has been asked to me. Sir, I am making payment of tax under reverse charge at concessional rate in the case of GTA. Am I eligible to claim the input tax credit? Sir, wherever you have paid the tax, you are eligible to claim the credit. Either you have paid the tax to the supplier who have in turn deposited in the case of forward charge, or you have paid the tax under reverse charge. And we all know under reverse charge, there are two sections, 5.3 and 5.4 of IGST. Similarly, subsection 3 and 4 of section 4.9 of CGST. So in दोनों cases में दोनों तरह के reverse charge में आपने जब tax दिया, if you satisfy the conditions as prescribed in section 16, which we are going to deal now, certainly you are eligible for the credit. It is totally immaterial how the tax liability has been discharged by this supplier, except composition level. If he has paid tax under GTA, transport of goods by road, at the rate of 5%, concessional rate without ITC, or he has charged tax at the rate of 12%, taking the benefit of IGST. In both the cases, whatever amount has been paid by you, in the first case 5%, in the second case 12%, the amount of GST is available as a credit to you. Whatever is not available is only the tax charged by the composition dealer. In fact, he cannot charge tax. He is not allowed to issue the tax invoice. He can only charge the sale consideration. So obviously, when the tax invoice he cannot issue, and then there is a specific bar in the definition of input tax also. So barring that, whatever tax and cess you are paying, you are eligible for the credit. Then friends, this tax need to be paid on what? It is absolutely same as compared to pre-GST era. Number one, you are entitled for the GST paid on input, capital goods or input service. The question comes, the definition which has been given before you, clause 19 of section 2 says, capital goods means the goods, the value of which has been capitalized in the books of account. And input means any goods other than capital goods, clause 59. So friends, all goods are being covered. Either the value has been capitalized or the value has not been capitalized. So eligible for the credit of all goods, irrespective of your accounting treatment in the books of account. Unlike in the pre-GST era, where there were different mechanisms to avail the credit with regard to capital goods in installment, etc. Now in GST, there is no distinction. I can claim the credit in the month. I am eligible to claim that credit in which I am receiving the invoice. So the question is, if that being so, then why this distinction is being made? This distinction of capital goods has been made with reference to certain provisions, for example, job work. For example, when I'm selling the capital good, the life of capital asset has been determined as 5 years. So 5% is the reduction in the value for each quarter. And if I'm selling it after 2 years, then I'm either liable to pay tax at the rate of 60% of the value at which I have purchased that capital asset, or the transactional value, whichever is higher. So barring those special circumstances where these capital goods are important, For example, in the case of availment of credit, sometimes there is a restriction with regard to capital goods. So barring that, the manner in which I am eligible to claim the credit on goods remains the same. It comes in one go and it comes to the registered dealer. Those conditions we will discuss. And now look at the definition of input service. It says any service, like all goods are eligible for the credit. In input service, any service. And then if you look at the common words, used or intended to be used in the course of furtherance of business, used or intended to be used by the, everywhere they have stated used or intended to be used. So it's a very wide scope of the tax credit, barring certain restrictions, which we will discuss in the coming slides. So the scope is very, very wide. This is what I intend to say. Now we are going to discuss certain principles with regard to input tax credit, which have been settled in the pre-GST era. And because the scheme of the GST is almost on the similar lines, so therefore these principles are still applicable. First and most important is that once you avail the credit in terms of the provisions of law, then it is indefeasible. You can carry it forward for unlimited period. If the availment has been correctly done, then utilization is at the whims and fancies of the person who is entitled to claim the credit, and he can carry it forward for unlimited period. Then friends, we need to understand the second provision also. There cannot be any recovery of demand which has been availed and validly earned by this. So in the case of Eicher Motor, Honorable Apex Court said, in case at the time of availment, you have availed the credit, which is as per the provisions of law, then subsequent event will not make it ineligible credit, and that amount cannot be recovered from. In other words, let us say I purchased certain input when my goods were taxable, and I claim the credit when the goods have been received in my factory. This was the time under excise law, and the credit was validly availed by me. Then question comes, if that being so, tomorrow there is an exemption notification and my final product becomes exempted, and that input on which I have claimed the credit has been used for the production at the point of time when it has become an exempted goods. Can the department ask me to reverse the credit? Certainly not. And we have seen in service tax also, there have been a lot more litigation wherever the builders have not been able to dispose of their full inventory before the completion certificate, and they have availed the full credit. There have been a lot more litigation, and there are judgments in support of the SSC, wherein they have stated at the time of availment they were eligible for the credit, so it cannot be asked to be reversed. Then there have been a lot more debate when the GST come. I have heard number of professionals on that, whether it is my constitutional right, whether it is my statutory right, or it is a benefit allowed to me. In 2019, Honorable Apex Court in the case of ALD Automotive have already answered this. It is no doubt a very important absolute right, but subject to conditions. It is a conditional right, so you have to satisfy the condition as that has been laid down in the statutory provision. Then friends, this is very, very important to understand. Classification cannot be challenged in the hands of the recipient. बहुत बार ये क्वेश्चन आता है, sir, supplier has incorrectly charged me the lower rate of tax or excess rate of tax. Lower में तो कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं, आपको तो क्रेडिट लोअर का मिलना है. In the case of excess, Let us say he has charged tax at 18%, whereas those goods are liable to be taxed only at 12%. The question comes, can my credit be restricted to 12 rupees? Because that goods were liable to be taxed at 12, but he has collected 18% and paid to the government at 18%. In my humble opinion, you will be eligible for the credit which you have paid, that is excess amount, 18 rupees. There is no doubt about that. And this issue is no more res integra. Already settled a number of judgments. Couple of judgments are already on the screen. Now we can move further. जैसे मैंने आपसे कहा था कि वैलिडिटी अवेल है तो उसके लिए बिल्डर्स का केस है, तो ओलंपिक लिमिटेड इज द केस व्हिच हैज बीन अप्रूव्ड बाय द गुजरात हाई कोर्ट. But at the same time, friends, sometimes we are in confusion whether this supply is taxable or not. But once I pay the tax, I am eligible for the credit. So my humble request is, in all those cases, you must pay the tax and claim the credit. Nowadays, there is not even a blockage of working capital. जिस महीने में बिल आता है, जिस महीने में मैं पेमेंट करता हूँ, लेट अस से मैंने ऑन स्पॉट पेमेंट पे माल खरीदा है, उस महीने का क्रेडिट उसी महीने में मिल जाता है. सो कहीं कोई लॉस ऑफ लिक्विडिटी भी नहीं है. एक सब्सटेंटिव बेनिफिट कैन नॉट बी डिनाइड फॉर नॉन कंप्लायंस ऑफ द प्रोसीजरल कंडीशंस. इट हैज बीन स्टेटेड बाय द एपेक्स कोड. In every benefit, there are two kind of conditions. One, we call it a substantive, another we call it procedural. So once substantive condition being satisfied, कहीं GST number गलत लिखा गया, कहीं आपका supplier ने कुछ और particulars गलत mention कर दी है, so they can be corrected. They have to provide you an opportunity to do the same, but your credit cannot be lost. So friends, with these general basic principle, now let's move to sections and try to understand. 16.1 is the most important section, which set out the limits on which I can claim the credit. Every word is important, we need to understand. First of all, we talk about every registered person. Who is eligible for the credit? Every registered person. Who is liable to pay the tax? Every taxable person. The one who is liable to be registered and failed to get himself registered is also liable to pay the tax. A chartered accountant providing professional services which are subject to tax now, more than 20 lakh, but failed to get himself registered. He will be liable to pay the tax because he is a taxable person, but he will not be eligible for the credit for the input supplies received for the discharge of that taxable services. So this is very, very important. Kindly take a note of this. It is only the registered person. Why I am emphasizing on this word every registered person? Because in the erstwhile law, VAT में तो ये condition थी, लेकिन excise और service tax में registration was not the requirement. So this is the new condition which is being introduced in GST, and it is on the line of VAT. So the credit is available only to the registered person. So therefore, in order to provide disincentive to the honest supplier, to the dishonest supplier, sorry, जो liable थे registration के लिए पर registration नहीं कराए, अब उनको dual नुकसान हो रहा है. For example, that chartered accountant who has provided service of 30 lakh now is liable to pay 5,40,000 rupees as his output tax on his output supplies, plus interest and penalty. But at the same time, he is not eligible for the credit. Let us say even he has taken the office on rent. So that rent which he was paying was not eligible, which was available in pre-GST era in excise and service tax. Now friends, move further. Then it says, subject to such conditions and restrictions as may be specified, be entitled to take credit of input tax charged. Input tax charged. Input tax क्या है तो हमने देख लिया, IGST, CGST, UTGST सब covered है. लेकिन यहाँ charged word है ना कि chargeable. अभी मैं आपसे ये बात कर रहा था कि क्लासिफिकेशन कैन नॉट बी चैलेंज इन द हैंड्स ऑफ द रिसिपिएंट। वो बात इस वर्ड से और कंफर्म हो गई। उन्होंने कहा जी जो इनपुट टैक्स उसने चार्ज किया है उसका आपको क्रेडिट मिलेगा, ना कि चार्जेबल। In some of the VAT laws, the tax payable was there, so there they used to restrict the credit to the amount which was payable under the act. But here the word used is charged, and I am very conscious I am addressing the august audience of chartered accountant who are well aware of these interpretational principles, and they will agree with me that this charge word is confirming that the classification cannot be challenged in the hands of recipient. Even if you have paid excess tax, you will be eligible for the credit of the same. Then, as I told you, use are intended to be used. Now we all understand what is the purpose. The purpose is the government want to verify each and every invoice. If the condition would have been used, then if AK Batra and Associates have purchased 10 computers, 5 has been put to use in the month of March and 5 in the month of April, my credit would have been available 50% in the month of March and 50% in the month of April. How the department would have kept it like of it? तो उन्होंने कहा नहीं, आप क्रेडिट भले ही अप्रैल में ले लेना, but we are permitting you to claim the credit in the month of purchase so that your supplier and recipient invoice can be matched. And we all know for that only 1, 2, 3 scheme was being introduced, which was never implemented. Now it is being dispensed with. 3B is the annual return. This is 3B is the valid return now. And now this GSTR1, that credit must appear in 2B, is also one of the conditions which has been introduced. We'll come to that later on. In the course of furtherance of business, when I was saying the scope has enhanced, it is not only the course of business, but for the furtherance of business also. So what do you mean by furtherance? Furtherance means once I am achieving the objective of the business also. Let us say I am a pharma company. I intend to see this world free of corona. For the purpose of eradication and to advance my business, I started R&D for developing the vaccine for corona. Unfortunately, those who have succeeded, they can argue, yes, we are eligible for that. But where the pharma company is not able to even develop the drug, even then, in my humble opinion, whatever amount he has incurred on the supplies which are used for the purpose of R&D shall be eligible for the input tax credit. Similarly, if I take an example from the chartered accountant profession, now let us say there is a chartered accountant who has been dealing in indirect taxes like Mr. Batra, or direct taxes like Mr. Brajesh Agarwal, and he wants to develop a finance division wherein they want to arrange finance for the industry and they want to start up that. So whatever infrastructure is being created, whatever amount is being spent, even if you don't get even a single client who approaches you to get the finance, but you have incurred a lot more expenditure in developing that discipline wherein you have to practice, you are eligible for the credit. In my humble understanding, that is the meaning of furtherance of business. Now, friends, we are coming to the most important slide. But before I do that, the credit is available in the month of purchase. Value of supply taxes has been paid by the discharged by the recipient. 1-to-1 correlation is not required if we look at this definition. Business has been very widely defined. When we say in the course or furtherance of business, we were discussing what is course or what is furtherance. But if you look at the business, which has been defined in subclause 17 of section 2, you will appreciate that it also includes any expenditure which is being incurred in connection with the commencement or closure of business. So another clue for the chartered accountant. I'm registered in Delhi, having 2 places of business. I want to open another place under the same registration number. and I ask my interior person to provide me certain furniture, equipment, etc. So I'll be eligible for those credit even if there is no revenue earned from that office. So because it is also a business, setting up of a business and closure of business is business. Basically, this was being included in the definition of business to plug a loophole. VAT law में क्या होता था? Tax was to be paid by a dealer. मैंने काम बंद कर दिया, मैंने अपनी एसेट्स बेचनी है, तो मैं अपना पहले नंबर सरेंडर कर देता था, तो मैं कहता था मैं डीलर नहीं रहा, अब मैं इसको बेच रहा हूँ, मैं वैट नहीं दूंगा. So the government said no. Now whatever you are selling, that is also a business. Any activity in relation to closure of business is also a business, so you are liable to pay GST. उसको क्लब करना था, but then we get an advantage when we are incurring any expenditure in setting up of our office. This was the word which has been specifically used in the inclusive clause in service tax. But now it makes it very clear that even activities in relation to setting up. I am incorporating a company, fees has been paid to the company secretary or the chartered accountant. So whatever tax I have paid, I can claim the credit. You can say, Mr. Batra, if we are not registered, then how can we do it? Obviously, that is a point because every registered person is entitled for the credit. But then under section 25, you can always seek voluntary registration. In the case of corporate, of course, till the incorporation, it becomes difficult to apply for the number. But in the case of proprietorship partnership firm, so what we can do, we can have a proprietor partnership firm and form the private limited company to take over the business, and we take over the business, the credit automatically comes with us. So there are ways and means now. If you apply your mind, you can certainly claim the credit for the supplies which you have received for the purpose of setting up your business. Now, friends, without wasting our time, I'll come to the most important section. And this is the section which is creating a lot of problem for all tax professionals, trade and profession. Friends, notwithstanding anything contained in this section, सबसे पहले हमें ये समझना पड़ेगा कि 16(2) जो है, it is a non-obstant clause, and the provision of this clause shall prevail, whatever has been stated in other subsection 1, 3, 4. No registered person shall be entitled to credit of any input tax. So again, they are reaffirming credit is available to the registered person. So they are saying no registered person, यानी registered तो वो है, पर फिर भी उसको credit नहीं मिलेगा in respect of supply of goods and services of both, unless he satisfies these conditions. The first condition is he is in possession of a tax invoice or debit note. So आपके हाथ में tax invoice और debit note होना चाहिए, or any other duty paying document, and all those duty paying document has been defined under Rule 36, which includes bill of entry at the time of import, a duty paying document for the purpose of claim of IGST. Similarly, IST invoice, I don't know whether time will permit us to deal with this subject or not, but yes, if you are an input service distributor and you are issuing the invoices for distributing the credit to other offices, then that invoice is also a duty paying document. The first thing is you must have a duty paying document as defined in Rule 36. But then that is not the only condition. The conditions which we are going to discuss and provided in 16(2) have to be satisfied cumulatively. अगर एक भी condition satisfy नहीं होती है तो आपको credit नहीं मिलेगा. But then the important question is whether all these conditions need to be satisfied at the point of time when I am claiming the credit. In my humble opinion, no. When we will see the condition provided in second proviso, what does it say? You have to make payment for value of supplies and tax thereon within 180 days. It cannot be done on that day. So 6-month period is there, but you are eligible for the credit in the month of April. Reversal will be required only in the month of October. So these conditions have to be satisfied, but not at the same time or not at the time when I am availing the credit. Then this is very, very important condition which has been inserted from 1st January 2022. Prior to that, my credit was being regulated, or the government tried to regulate that credit through Rule 36 and subclause 4. And these provisions were challenged in various courts, stating that 36(4) talk about a condition which is not written in the law. So now, in order to provide the statutory backing, they have very clearly mentioned that the detail of invoice or debit note or any other document furnished by the supplier must be communicated to the recipient of such invoice. अगर आप देखेंगे तो ये बिल ऑफ एंट्री और आईएसडी इनवॉइस नहीं लिखा हुआ, क्योंकि जीएसटीआर 1 की इंफॉर्मेशन 2B में जाती है, और जब मैं इंपोर्ट करता हूं तो मेरी जो बिल ऑफ एंट्री वो आइस गेट में आती है, जीएसटीआर 1 में नहीं आती है. तो इसलिए उन्होंने बड़ा क्लियरली कह दिया कि इन द केस ऑफ इनवॉइस और डेबिट नोट, it has to be reported in the GSTR 1 and it must be communicated to the supplier in GSTR 2B. This is with effect from 1st January 2022. Why I am saying so and why I am insisting on this is simply because wherever you are receiving the notice for mismatch with your GSTR 2A or your financial statement, you can say first of all 36(4) was introduced somewhere in 2019 and the statutory backing has come only from 1st January 22. Prior to that there was no restriction. For that matter, you can even refer to the Honorable Supreme Court judge in the case of Bharti Telecommunication, wherein we all understand it is a very important case of Delhi High Court which provided the relief to the SSC, saying you can revise your return and you can claim refund of the 930 odd crores which you have paid through ITC. Just to remind you and to give you facts in brief, Bharti ne return file करते हुए they forget to claim the benefit of 936 ITC and discharge that liability in cash. They went to Delhi High Court saying 1, 2, 3 could not be made operational, so I could not know what is the credit available to me, so I have failed to claim the credit. So kindly permit me to utilize that credit and this 936 crore either be refunded to me or adjusted in my future liability. Supreme Court very clearly stated in that judgment, this 2A business is only a facilitation buyer. It is not the requirement of claiming the credit. So therefore, in the pre-GST era also, you are claiming the credit as per your books of accounts, and undoubtedly, you are looking at your accounts, where are the invoices, where is the eligibility, where it is not eligible, you have to reverse it and all that. This government has provided you this facility only to help you in deciding how much is the credit available. So friends, जहां भी mismatch के notice आ रहे हैं, आप उस Supreme Court की judgment को भी quote कर सकते हैं और ये भी कह सकते हैं कि Rule 36 की कोई applicability नहीं थी, statutory backing नहीं है, it has been provided only from 1st January. So any mismatch demand prior to this cannot be justified. Now friends, we are coming to condition number 3. He has received the goods and services. अब आपने ये कहा, सर मेरे पास बिल है. This is what every chartered accountant, every professional, every trader says. I am in possession of the invoice which is due to being invoice. I have a proper e-way bill. Payment has been made through account pay check. Then why I should be denied the credit? This condition kindly see This is very important. He says he has received the goods or services or both. In addition to having the invoice in your hand, you must also prove that you have received such goods and services. One can argue what can be the evidence in relation to the receipt of services. I agree. There's no e-way bill, there's no requirement, there's no evidence. But in that case, all your mails, all your agreements, whatever has been done, there may be some evidence you can create by way of taking photographs, etc., or wherever you can prove that this service has been received by me. So it is in your interest to have as much evidence as you want. So one of the conditions is you must have received. अभी आप देखेंगे जितनी भी अरेस्ट हुई है 937 is the number, official number given by the department 1.5 months back. I think most of these arrests has been made under this provision only. जिसको हम fake invoicing business कहते हैं. Though the term fake invoice has not been defined under the law, but that means you are in occupation of the invoice for the purpose of claiming the credit without receiving such supplies. So it's only a paper transaction. And very recently, I'm sure most of you must have read circular number 171 also, which is being issued by the department on the concept of fake invoice. I'll certainly like to deal with that. But before I do that, let me complete this section. Then I'll explain that circular. Then we'll go to the queries and move to another section. Now, so far as goods are concerned, you should have a proper e-way bill. उसमें vehicle number आप वाहन से टेस्ट कर लीजिए. कल को पता चले कि vehicle number तो टू व्हीलर का है. आपके पास मूवमेंट आई, स्टॉक रजिस्टर में एंटर करिए. वहां से जब आप प्रोडक्शन के लिए इशू करते हैं वहां इशू करिए, उसकी कंजम्पशन दिखाइए. So detailed record, most importantly because of section 154, which cost you on the owners. So this is the most important thing. Rest of the things in relation to this we will discuss after we discuss this section. Then friends, what is the meaning once I ask that goods to be delivered to my job worker or to my agent or otherwise? They say if it is being received by them, we will assume the goods have been received by you. So that's the deeming provision. Then comes condition number 4. We call it BA because A, B, and this is the 4th condition. And that has also been inserted from 1st October 2022. Though इसके भी अभी rules notify नहीं हुए. उन्होंने ये कहा if there is a credit available to you, GSTR 1 में supplier ने उसको issue भी कर दिया, तो आपके 2B में restrict भी हो गया. But then there are conditions. If those conditions are not being satisfied, then you will not be eligible for the credit. And what are those conditions? उन्होंने कहा, for example, I'm not dealing with all of them because they have not become operational and the rules are yet to be found for that purpose. So मैं उसमें ये कह दिया कि गवर्नमेंट को पावर है, आपने नया रजिस्ट्रेशन लिया, आपका टर्नओवर abnormally हाई हो गया, तो आपका क्रेडिट अभी सामने वाले को नहीं मिलेगा for couple of months. I am not giving any opinion on that because this power is there with the government, but they have not specified the rule. Those conditions have already been given in the law. So till it is being notified, we can move further and deal with the next condition. Now the next condition is very, very dangerous and the most litigated and most, I will say, unreasonable condition. And that condition is the supplier of goods or services from whom you are receiving the goods must have paid tax to the government. There is a legal maxim जिसका मतलब होता है you cannot expect an assessee to do an impossible task. अब क्वेश्चन ये आया कि भैया अगर उसने टैक्स जमा नहीं कराया तो what is my fault? I have made payment to him. He was your agent, you have granted him the registration. On the day of transaction, his registration was valid. If subsequently you are cancelling it retrospectively, even then, in my humble opinion, and the case law also support us, this credit cannot be denied. So how can I verify? In the absence of 1, 2, 3, which has never seen the light of the day, and this idea has been shelved with. Kindly appreciate, if I am filing my 3B, as I am doing as a chartered accountant also, my total tax liability and total tax credit is being given. Is there any column or detail with regard to the invoice on which I am discharging the GST liability? No. It may be there in GSTR1, and that becomes my credit. But then in 3B, as a recipient of the supply, I have no mechanism wherein I can say this gentleman has paid the tax. This is another condition. And it was a absolutely settled law. Buyer cannot be penalized for the fault committed by the selling dealer. This is Delhi High Court judgment in the case of Arise India, and it has been approved by the Supreme Court, but unfortunately not by speaking order. Summarily, they have rejected the appeal of the department. In case it could have been a speaking order, then it would have become a binding precedent under Article 141. But because it is not by the speaking order, so it has not become the binding precedent. But anyway, this judgment is there. Then, friends, we come to proviso to this section. I must have filed the return. I means the person who is claiming the credit. So this is the last condition. This is the sixth practically. One has not been operationalized because whatever restriction is to be imposed under section 38, those rules have not been formalized and has not been notified. But the person who is filing the return is liable to file his return under section 39, and now we all understand 3B is the return which is being accepted as a valid return. Then the first invoice says where in an invoice आपने उसको कहा 20 टन आयरन चाहिए, उसने बिल बना दिया, but because 20 ton iron cannot be carried in any vehicle, so he is sending 5-6 vehicle, one let us say every day, then you are eligible for the credit when you receive the last installment of such supplies. So that is for your. Then this is the second provision. This is very, very important, and most of the chartered accountants have been doing research on this and finding out the ways and means to counter it. And there have been certain legal argument also. We'll discuss all that now. Condition is if the recipient, that means the one who's claiming the credit, fails to pay to the supplier of goods amount towards the value of services, of course, except barring RCM, because RCM पे लगता नहीं है. RCM में जब मैं टैक्स जमा कराऊंगा तभी मेरी एलिजिबिलिटी आएगी. और मैं यह क्लियर कर देना चाहता हूं कि अगर आपने 18-19 का भी कोई टैक्स RCM में आज जमा कराया है तो यू कैन क्लेम द क्रेडिट नाउ बिसाइड्स 16/4 टाइम लिमिट. चलिए फ्रेंड्स, within 180 days from the date of issue of invoice, along with GST. That means 100 रुपए का बिल था, 18 रुपए GST था, मुझे 118 रुपए देना है. In case I fail to make the payment, I have to reverse the credit in the following month, and that amount has to be paid along with interest. जैसे हम एग्जांपल ले रहे थे, 1 अप्रैल का बिल है, 30 सितंबर तक 180 दिनों की पेमेंट नहीं की, 1 अक्टूबर को रिवर्स करूंगा, 18 रुपए प्लस इंटरेस्ट thereon I am liable to pay. So it appears to be very simple one, but kindly see what are the implications of this. First of all, it says from the date of invoice and not from the date of receipt of goods and services. The condition कहती है कि you must have received the goods. So in my humble opinion, as I told you, these conditions need to be satisfied cumulatively, but not at the time when I am claiming the credit. So we have to make the payment from the date of invoice, not from the date of receipt of goods. It is a self-disciplined mechanism. Portal doesn't help you. You have to maintain your own record. In case you have made proportionate payment, then proportionate credit can be claimed, and rest of the credit has to be reversed. For example, 118 रुपए में, if I made the payment of 59 rupees, then I am supposed to reverse the credit of rupees 9 only. Rate of interest 18%, पहले दो रेट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट थे, सेक्शन 50 सब सेक्शन 1 में 18% था, और रॉन्ग अवेलमेंट और यूटिलाइजेशन ऑफ क्रेडिट पे 24% रेट ऑफ टैक्स था. बट नाउ retrospectively this rate of tax has been reduced to 18% with effect on 30th March 2022. I still find that the department is insisting interest at the rate of 24%, which according to my humble opinion is not the correct way to do the things. You can say by Finance Act 116 and 190 of the Finance Act, this notification has been amended and now we are liable to pay interest only at the rate of 18%. The question is period of interest from the date of availing credit on Ashok supply till the amount added to the output tax liability. Now the supply was to be received 5th of April and I am claiming the credit on 20th of May. So for which period I am liable to pay the interest? That is another important issue of mitigation. Then it says when you fail to pay the interest. So one view is if the credit period allowed to me is more than 6 months, can you still say I have violated the provision? This is one judgment of authority of advance ruling in the case of Senco Gold Limited, wherein they have stated that you cannot restrict the recipient from claiming the credit when consideration is paid through book adjustment, subject to the condition restrictions. So this is another issue, but the first question which I was asking you, whether the credit which has been allowed to me for 9 months, in my humble opinion, the language has to be taken in the whole context in which it is used. So in my humble opinion, it very clearly says that you have to claim the credit within 180 days from the date of invoice. So you are not eligible for the credit. Then comes that payment can be made through book adjustment. इसको अगर दूसरी तरह से सोचें और हम सीए वाला दिमाग लगाएं, आप ये कह सकते हैं कि सर क्या मैं ये कर सकता हूं कि उसको लोन दिखा दूं और उसकी पेमेंट क्रेडिटर्स में से क्लियर कर दूं. I can say I made payment for the value I have given him the loan. Yes, it can be done if it is a legitimate transaction. If you go to a electronic shop and purchase a TV, then you can say सर मैंने टीवी खरीदा है, बोला ठीक है भैया इसकी मेरे पास पैसे नहीं है मैं इंस्टॉलमेंट दे देता हूँ. Then there is a finance company who gives a loan to that gentleman and after taking the loan he makes payment to the supplier. In my humble opinion, no problem. But where we are doing only the book adjustment for the purpose of claiming credit, by book entry only the loan is being given, etc. So there the department can say it is a camouflage or a colorable device, so this credit may not be available to you. Then the question was, when is the time for availment of credit? I think we will deal with that when we will go to next slide. So now, Corona. Lot more problems. Supreme Court suo moto, taking cognizance of the difficulties faced by the taxpayer, granted suo moto extension from 1st March 2020 to 28th of February 2022 for limitation period for filing appeal for refund, etc. So whether this 180 days limit is sacrosanct, or we can say that because of Corona, we have not been able to comply with this 180 days or because of certain situation or peculiar situation in a particular case that the supplier was suffering from cancer, etc. In my humble opinion, no argument will be there. If it is there, then court must take a cognizance and do that. And if at all you want to take a relief on this ground, then you have to go to the constitutional courts, High Court and Supreme Court. Till tribunal for which we are concerned, undoubtedly this cannot be taken as a ground for defining the condition of 180 days and claiming the credit. Now this condition of 180 days does not apply in the case of RCM. or when the transaction is between two distinct persons under the same PAN. And then it says third proviso, once you will make the payment, at that point of time, you will be eligible to claim the credit. Now, friends, I have not discussed with the concept of cross charge with reference to ITC. I have not discussed with the fake invoicing. Of course, I'm keeping these two issues still pending, and I'll deal when I'll complete this section 16. Now I'm about to, on the verge of completing this section. Now, friends, subsection 3. It is in relation to capital goods, the same position which was there in the rest by law. Dual benefit is not being permitted. If the amount of GST has been capitalized for the purpose of claiming depreciation, you cannot claim ITC of that GST which has been capitalized. Then there is a time limit for availment of credit, and very recently we all know it has been extended to 30th November, whereas earlier this limit was due date of filing the return for the month of September, that is just 20th of October. So, dear friends, one question which is being asked with regard to 16.4 is whether this time limit applies to the tax liability discharge in RCM. मैंने आपसे पहले भी कहा है, RCM की eligibility जो है वो payment of tax करने के बाद है. If you have made the payment of tax today, even for the supply received for 18-19, you can claim the credit. There is no doubt about that. But yes, then that credit should not be under section 73-74. Now, friends, we can look at the queries raised by the members, and then we can this is one query and question answer section. For financial year 17-18, supplier has uploaded the bills but forgot to report this as. I think I have already answered.
I have already replied, sir.
Yeah. Now comes to the chat part. Sir, I'll start from top and then we will come to the bottom. Good afternoon. Can you read for विजय जी, अगर देख सकते हैं कोई क्वेश्चन अभी तक आया हुआ था?
हाँ सर, एक क्वेश्चन है कि हम ये कैश लेजर जो होता है वो तो आसानी से people are giving refund also, but under what cases other than the import export cases, other than the import cases, under what cases credit ledger balance can be refunded?
देखिए, रिफंड दो तरह के हैं. एक रिफंड है कैश लेजर से, एक रिफंड है इनपुट टैक्स क्रेडिट का. इनपुट टैक्स क्रेडिट का जो रिफंड है वो सिर्फ दो सिचुएशन में मिलता है. वन, व्हेन यू आर मेकिंग ए zero rated supply as defined in section 16 of IGST, which includes not only export of goods and services but also includes supplies made to the SCZ.
This is it, right?
Second issue is when it is due to inverted duty structure, where my tax rate on output supply is less than the tax on the input or supplies received by me, and there is a mismatch, and because of that the refund is arisen to me.
हाँ सर.
So in दोनों सिचुएशन के अलावा ITC का रिफंड कभी नहीं मिल सकता.
सर, एक थर्ड केस है कि जितने भी ये ऑनलाइन सेलर्स होते हैं इनका इनपुट अलग है, लेकिन जो Amazon या जो भी ये ई-कॉमर्स प्लेटफॉर्म होते हैं ये अप टू 30% इनसे सर्विस चार्जेस लेते हैं ड्यू टू ट्रांसपोर्टेशन, रिटर्न्स एंड एवरीथिंग. अब उस 30% चार्जेस पे थे 100 रुपए का सेल हुआ तो 30 रुपए चार्जेस हुए और उस पर 18% ₹5.5 वो लगा. तो 1% तो वो ले लेते हैं TCS, वो तो रिफंड हो जाता है. और कई बार मैं देखता हूँ कि 3% तक टर्नओवर का क्रेडिट लेजर में पड़ा होता है, जो क्योंकि सर्विसेज के ऊपर टैक्स लगता है.
As I told you, ये बहुत लंबा झगड़ा है इसका. मैं उसकी बैकग्राउंड में भी चला जाता हूँ और एक्सप्लेन करने की कोशिश करता हूँ. उन्होंने कहा गया when the rate of tax on output is more than the rate of tax on input. फिर ये क्वेश्चन गया BKC footstep के केस में, which was decided in favor of assessee, Madras High Court, then went to Tamil Nadu, which against the assessee, and finally Supreme Court has confirmed BKC. They said it is for the department to decide But yes, the formula given is not logical. So we are suggesting them to change the formula. For that, the formula has also been revised also. The question is, if my rate of tax, so this credit, which is excess on the input services, that is a cost to the business. There is no doubt about that. It may be an anomaly, but right now it is a cost to the business. You cannot claim on that. Now, sir, can you explain how payment of RCM 1819 can be claimed in current financial year? Sir, you have to make the payment and claim the credit in 3B. Department is contesting that for RCM, ITC to be claimed on the basis of self-invoice in financial year when payment was made, and due date for claiming ITC for invoice raised in financial year up to September next year. Hence ITC. Okay, once I have raised the invoice, I have not raised the self-invoice. Doesn't make any difference. But this transaction has been recorded in the books of accounts. Once this sorry. Once this transaction has been recorded in the books of accounts, merely by not issuing the self-invoice, can my substantive benefit be denied? That is what, when I was discussing the basic principles, I told you my substantive benefit cannot be denied for procedural lapse. So that is only a procedural lapse. The condition of eligibility is only when I'm making the payment. So in my humble opinion, we can litigate the matter and ultimately we will succeed. E-commerce seller sell goods 5%, e-commerce operator charge. There is no way it is your cost. I have already answered this. Whether RCM input can be taken in same month in terms of 16(2)(c. Sir, so far as research reverse charge ki liability hai, I am telling time and again, you are eligible only when you make payment for the taxes to the supplier. So before making payment, you cannot. In case you have made the payment in the same month, certainly you can claim the credit. इसमें 16(2)(c का provision ही नहीं है, because you have to make the payment. You make the payment in the same month, you claim the credit in the same month. Absolutely no problem. Under what cases credit ledger balance can be refunded? I have already explained you there are two situations: zero rated supply and inverted duty structure.
Yes,
Please
sir.
don't mention your membership. I think these were the queries that.
एक है सर, can we claim GST input on hotel bills and tour operator bill?
Can you please enter the circular number and data available as it tour? देखिए टूर ऑपरेटर मैंने पहले आंसर दे दिया है इसका, शायद मैंने देख ली कि ये क्वेरी मैंने आपसे कहा है जहाँ रेट ऑफ टैक्स लिखा है वहाँ कंडीशंस लिखी हुई हैं, उस कंडीशन में उन्होंने लिखा हुआ है कि यू शुड नॉट अवेल द क्रेडिट एक्सेप्ट फ्रॉम द सेम लाइन ऑफ बिजनेस. सो काइंडली गो टू द रेट नोटिफिकेशन रिस्पेक्ट ऑफ सर्विसेज, दैट इज नोटिफिकेशन नंबर 11/2017. ये भी आंसर हो गई है क्वेरी. So I think not much of the queries are there. If there is any hand raised, of course, question and answer. Now there is another one. Whether RCM is payable on transportation of exempted goods? Certainly not. ये एक और myth है professionals के दिमाग में. If a supply is in the reverse charge, then I am liable to pay the tax. It is not that. First of all, we have to see the taxability. If the taxability is not there, then the question of payment of tax shall not arise either under forward charge or under reverse charge. Absolutely, medical services, even receipt from a doctor is not registered or registered, doesn't matter. Exempted supplies, exempted goods, section 23 also provide you immunity from even seeking registration if you are dealing exclusively in exempted supply. So there is no question, I think, to cut short the discussion. Now friends, we can go to our presentation once again. कि मिसमैच के जो नोटिस आ रहे हैं, इसके लिए हमने कोशिश की बताने की कि ये रूल 36(4) आया, जिसको मैंने पहले भी आपसे डिस्कस किया था कि 31 बार ये आया 9/10/19 तक, तो 17/18 और up to 8 October 2019. If there is a mismatch, then this rule was not in place at all. तब 20% था. 1 जनवरी 20 से 31/12 तक I was eligible to claim the credit of 10% of the amount reflecting in my 2A 2B, and thereafter 5%. Still, we can say, as I told you, even though this rule was there, but this was beyond the statutory provision. अभी हमने 16(2) पढ़ा, जिसमें सारी conditions दी गई हैं, how to avail the credit. क्या किसी भी condition में इस तरह की बात कही गई? तो जब सेक्शन में वो बात नहीं है, एक्सेप्ट जब मैंने आपसे कहा कि 1 जनवरी 2022 को 2 कंडीशनें इम्पोज हुई. नंबर 1, invoice and debit note has to be reported in GST 1 and it must come correspondingly to 2B. और सेकेंडली 38, जिसके अभी रूल्स उन्होंने नोटिफाई नहीं किए. तो आप इसमें भारतीय एयरटेल लिमिटेड का, जो मैं बार बार कह रहा हूं, यू कैन टेक दैट केस एंड यू कैन से कि सुप्रीम कोर्ट सेज this 2A 2B prior to this amendment from 1st January 22 was only a facilitation measure. So you can certainly take ground of that. Then this is rule 86B. I am just leaving it because it is not all that important. We can move directly to section 17. Now, section 17 is very important. It talks about apportionment of ITC, which is eligible to me, and also talk about block credit for which the credit is not available to me. 17(1) applies when I am carrying out my business and receiving supplies, and those supplies have been received partly for the purpose of business and partly for other purposes. Then there is no doubt the credit will be restricted only to the extent I am using it for the purpose of business. I'll give you an example to understand this. There is a bakery shop. He is buying the bakery product and selling it, claiming the credit. Now, in the month of November, there is a birthday of his son. So rather than buying those biscuits from the market, he appropriated some biscuit which he has purchased and which was lying in the stock and consumed it in the birthday function of his son. So now the credit of this particular amount, for example, 100 रुपए के बिस्कुट थे, 18 रुपए टैक्स दिया था, उसने उसमें से 50 रुपए के बिस्कुट अपने बच्चे के जन्मदिन पे यूज कर लिया. तो ये 9 रुपए का जो क्रेडिट है, that need to be reversed because it has been used for other than business purposes. Another example may be I am having a person who is dealing in the generator, और मैं सिर्फ जनरेटर मैन्युफैक्चर नहीं करता, बल्कि मैं जनरेटर के अंदर उसको लीज पे भी देता हूँ, उसकी रिपेयर मेंटेनेंस भी करता हूँ. And there are generators which are lying in my stock, and my wife says, my brother doesn't have a generator, why don't you give this generator for 3 months in the summer to your Sala and my brother? I do that, then accordingly proportionate credit has to be reversed because that generator has been used for purpose other than business. Now, what is really important to understand is goods or services are both are used by partly for the purpose of any business and partly for other purpose. Meaning thereby, this section is applicable to the supplies which have been used both for business and non-business purpose. If any supply has been used exclusively for business, on that this provision shall not apply. It will apply only to the common supply used partly for the purpose of business and partly for other purposes. Similarly, if we go to section 17(2), it also talks about partly for affecting taxable supplies and partly for taxing exempt supplies. For example, there is a doctor who not only provide medical services to his patient, but also provide consultancy to the pharma company, which is a taxable supply. So let us say if any supply has been used exclusively for taxable, you will get the full credit. Exclusively for medical, he will get no credit. But when it comes to common supplies, so he has to apportion the same. Now, there are certain technical issues with regard to that. Now we'll try and understand that. What is the meaning of exempt supply? We need not refer to section 247. That is clause 47 of section 2, which says exempt supply shall include three kinds of supply: nil rate of tax, wholly exempt from tax, and non-taxable. Why it is not to be taken into consideration? Because section 17(3) clearly talk about what is the meaning of exempt supply for the purpose of reversal of credit on. Kindly appreciate, as I'm stating time and again, there is a definition of exempt supply in clause 47 of section 2, and there is a specific definition of exempt supply for the purpose of section 72, where I have to proportionally reverse the credit, read with rule 42 and 43. Friends, 17(2) says value of exempt supply shall be such as may be prescribed and includes RCM supply, transaction in securities, sale of land, and sale of completed building. So exempt supply में जिस supplies पे मुझे RCM में टैक्स देना है, वो भी exempt supply का पार्ट होगा for the purpose of calculation. Transaction in securities भी होगा, sale of land भी होगा, sale of completed building भी होगा. For the purpose of this section, subsection says value of exempt supply shall not include जो schedule 3 में हमारी transactions है, barring sale of land and sale of completed building, that is item number 5. वो जो उनकी जो value है, for example services provided by the employee to the employer, या बाकी जो schedule 3 में services लिखी गई हैं, transaction outside the country, purchase and sale taking place both outside the country, so वो include नहीं होंगी. So मैं सिर्फ इतना कहना चाह रहा हूँ कि for the purpose of reversal of credit, you need to take this definition and not as provided in clause 47 of section 2, and it clearly says whatever are the exempt supply, non-taxable, you have to add RCM supplies, transaction security, sale of land, etc., and then you apply the principle of 17(4) is almost exactly the same. Financial institutions को option दे दी गई, either they can claim the reversal of credit on the basis of 17(2) principle as we have discussed here, or they can disallow 50% of the credit which they have earned in that particular month. So in this case, this is the same provision, so I am not going much into the detail. Before I go to fake invoice and other issue, I would like to just complete this section 17(5, then we will deal with that fake invoice, credit on fake invoices. So 17(5, now it is very, very important, notwithstanding anything contained in section 16(1. ये कहता है भैया 16(1) में एलिजिबिलिटी क्राइटेरिया था, जिसमें मैंने आपसे कहा था यूज और इंटेंडेड टू व्यू इन द कोर्स ऑफ फर्दरनेस ऑल इनपुट एंड कैपिटल गुड्स, तेरा कोई मीनिंग नहीं. And section 18(1), which is a special section for availment of credit, if the time permits, we'll deal with that. So कहता है उसको भी ये non-obstinate clause है. The provision of this clause shall supersede the provision of 16(1) and 18(1), even though you are eligible to claim the credit, but then that credit shall not be available to you. अब ये बहुत important section है, ये हर चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट को 17(5) को उठा के अपने टेबल पे रख लेना चाहिए. पहली कंडीशन है मोटर व्हीकल फॉर ट्रांसपोर्टेशन ऑफ पर्संस हैविंग अप्रूव्ड सीटिंग कैपेसिटी ऑफ नॉट मोर देन 30. सो दैट मींस तेरा जो व्हीकल मैन्युफैक्चर किया गया फॉर ट्रांसपोर्टेशन ऑफ पैसेंजर्स और उसकी कैपेसिटी मोर देन 13 पर्संस है, तो उस पे ये प्रोविजन एप्लीकेबल नहीं होगा. So what does it mean? Matadors having seating capacity of more than 13 persons including driver, buses and all those vehicles which are manufactured not for the purpose of transportation of persons but for the purpose of carrying of goods, they are also not covered here. Restriction is with regard to only motor vehicle for transportation of persons. Very important to understand. अगर मैंने कोई ट्रक लिया है या कोई ऐसा व्हीकल की बात कर रहे हैं which is being manufactured for the purpose of carrying goods and not for the purpose of transportation of persons, तो ये restriction उस पर अप्लाई नहीं होती है. स्कोप ऑफ सेक्शन को समझे, सिर्फ कार्स एक्सेट्रा which are having seating capacity up to 13 person, if it is more than 13, outside the permit. Then even in the case of motor vehicles which are for the transportation of persons and having capacity up to 13, still in their case this provision shall not apply in the case of supplier of such motor vehicle. If I am dealing in a car dealer, certainly this provision shall not be applicable to me. If I am a person engaged in the transportation of passenger, rent a cab, etc., this is not applicable to me. I will be eligible for the credit. If I am imparting training on driving such motor vehicle, that is a motor driving school, even he is eligible for the credit. तो पहले तो इसका स्कोप समझ लें, और मोटर व्हीकल को जो डिफाइन किया गया उसकी डेफिनेशन है 228 of the Motor Vehicle Act, which is available in this screen. उस पर अगर आप देखेंगे तो ये इसमें उन्होंने वो सारे व्हीकल जैसे फॉर एग्जांपल क्रेन्स हैं या फोक लिफ्टिंग लिफ्ट्स हैं, फोक लिफ्ट्स हैं, उन सब पे भी ये मोटर व्हीकल एक्ट नहीं लगता है क्योंकि दे आर नॉट फॉर ट्रांसपोर्टेशन ऑफ पर्सन्स. तो इसकी बड़ी लिमिटेड सी डेफिनेशन है और वहां से निकाले गए इंजन कैपेसिटी ऑफ नॉट एक्सीडिंग 25 क्यूबिक सेंटीमीटर. तो जो मोपेड वगैरह है उनको भी कहीं कहीं पे अगर ये पैरामीटर सेटिस्फाई होते हैं तो फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल वी हैव टू सी द डेफिनेशन ऑफ द मोटर व्हीकल एक्ट, देन वी हैव टू सी इट इज ट्रांसपोर्टेशन ऑफ पर्सन्स and with more than 13. So these are the things we need to know, but rest I think everybody knows about it. Then comes vessels and aircraft. वही same conditions है, further supply, transportation of passenger, imparting training on navigation or flying such aircraft. Then transportation of goods पे नहीं लगता है. 1 फरवरी 2019 से पहले ये क्वेश्चन था कि मैं चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट हूं और मैंने गाड़ी खरीदी है, क्या गाड़ी का तो क्रेडिट नहीं मिलेगा, मैं तो 5 सीटर 6 सीटर या 7 सीटर में बैठता हूं, लेकिन क्या उसकी इंश्योरेंस, उसकी रिपेयर मेंटेनेंस वगैरह मिल जाएगी. So there was a dispute up to February 2019, but thereafter it has become very clear, law has been amended, this credit is not available to you. Even in my humble opinion, the language was very clear, but still now it has been clarified, so there cannot be any dispute after 1st February. Now friends, subclause B, this is again very important clause. It says, it talk about 8 specified services which are, अगर आप उसकी नेचर में जाएंगे then you will appreciate गवर्नमेंट की बात भी ठीक है क्योंकि ये सारी सर्विसेज जो है they are likely to be misutilized. फूड एंड बेवरेजेस, पार्टनर्स फैमिली के साथ खाना खा रहे हैं, बिल फर्म के नाम पे ले लिया. आउटडोर कैटरिंग, घर का फंक्शन है, बिल फर्म के नाम से ले लिया. ब्यूटी ट्रीटमेंट, हेल्थ सर्विसेज, कॉस्मेटिक एंड प्लास्टिक सर्जरी, लीजिंग, रेंटिंग और हायरिंग ऑफ मोटर व्हीकल, वेसल और एयरक्राफ्ट, एक्सेप्ट जो एक्सेप्शन में डील कर ली. Life insurance and health insurance. So all these expenses, all these supplies received by the person who is carrying on the business and using it for the purpose of business, even then this credit shall not be available because in the opinion of the government, it was likely to be misutilized. तो ये 8 खर्चों पे आपको क्रेडिट नहीं मिलेगा, but then the proviso says कि इसका क्रेडिट आप ले सकते हैं when you are engaged into the business of providing the same services or when it forms part of your composite or mixed supply. इसको थोड़ा एक्सप्लेन करने की कोशिश करूंगा. If I am a restaurant person, I am buying food and beverages and selling food and beverages, I'll be eligible for the credit. I may be a mandap keeper wherein I am giving the mandap and the food for the purpose of some social, business, official function, and I am discharging lab. It's a composite supply where I am providing mandap keeping services. So this food and beverages become part of the composite supply because it is not naturally bundled. Every mandap keeper provides normally the food. So in that case also, you will get the credit of this. Then comes membership of a club, health and fitness center. So इसमें कोई provision नहीं, कोई condition नहीं. So membership of a club, health and fitness center आपको किसी कीमत पे भी नहीं मिलेगी under any circumstances. दोबारा नोट कर ले, membership of a club, membership of a health and fitness center, no credit. Then travel benefit to the employees on vacation. If it is obligatory, if it is provided by the law, you will get the credit. If not, then the social welfare, the credit is not available. अब आया बहुत important सी condition 17.5C, which talk about works contract service और works contract define किया हुआ है 2119 में, जहां उन्होंने 14 एक्टिविटीज लिखी हैं: कंस्ट्रक्शन, इरेक्शन, कमीशनिंग, इंस्टॉलेशन, कंप्लीशन, फिटिंग आउट, रिपेयर, मेंटेनेंस, रेनोवेशन, अल्टरेशन, बिल्डिंग, फैब्रिकेशन, मॉडिफिकेशन. In 14 activity, when it is in relation to immobile property and you are using it for the purpose of business, you are not eligible for the credit. इसको अगर मैं चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट के पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से बताऊं तो आप ये कह सकते हैं कि अगर मैं चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट हूं, मैंने अपना ऑफिस बनवाया और मैंने ठेका दे दिया, मुझे क्रेडिट नहीं मिलेगा. मैं फिर कहना चाहूंगा, अगर आप इस क्लॉज को थोड़ा मैन्यूटली पढ़ें, क्रिटिकल एनालाइज करें, तो वर्क्स कॉन्ट्रैक्ट में मैंने आपको 14 एक्टिविटी दिखाई और उस 14 एक्टिविटी के अलावा वर्क्स कॉन्ट्रैक्ट मींस देयर इज अ प्रोविजन ऑफ सर्विस एज वेल एज ट्रांसफर ऑफ प्रॉपर्टी एंड गुड्स. तो अगर वो एक्टिविटी इन रिलेशन टू इमूवेबल प्रॉपर्टी है, now if I give a contract to a interior person, you give me the furnished office and you give me a consolidated invoice of, let us say, 50 lakh rupees, then department can argue you are not eligible for any credit in the case of chartered accountant. But can the chartered accountant be wise enough और बोले भैया सिविल का काम और ये जो इंटीरियर है, wherever this ply etc becomes part of the wall etc, आप वो काम कर लो. But then you supply me furniture independently, computers independently, toiletries independently. टॉयलेटरीज तो यहाँ नहीं लेना चाहिए, आप इसको भी छोड़ देते हैं. मैं तो सिर्फ टॉयलेटरीज का तो ये है कि you are eligible for any supply even if it uses the toilet. So far as this contract is concerned, तो मेरे को जो कंप्यूटर लूंगा मैं लूज फर्नीचर लूंगा, क्योंकि that doesn't fall into the definition of works contract. So therefore there is no bar on that. For the purpose of this clause उन्होंने define भी किया है और ये एक exception भी दिया उन्होंने प्लांट एंड मशीनरी को. पहले मोटा मोटा समझ लेते हैं इसका स्कोप क्या है. First of all, it applies to works contract services, 14 activities which I told you in relation to immovable property, where is a composite supply with this transfer of property and goods as well as provision of services. Exception is plant and machinery, and plant and machinery में उन्होंने explanation में define किया. Plant and machinery means apparatus, equipment and machinery fixed to earth by foundation or structural support that are used for making outward supply. So यहाँ भी conditions हैं. पहले it should be fall into the definition of apparatus, equipment and machinery. Then it must be fixed to the earth by foundation or structural support or used for making outward supply of goods and services, and includes structural support. Excludes. Exclusion में बाद में आते हैं. तो ये क्वेश्चन आया कि जो प्लांट एंड मशीनरी है, अगर वो उसको स्ट्रक्चर अर्थ के साथ फिक्स किया गया बाय फाउंडेशन या स्ट्रक्चरल सपोर्ट से, तो आपको उसका क्रेडिट मिल जाएगा. पर कहाँ नहीं मिलेगा क्रेडिट, उसमें भी उन्होंने 3 एक्सेप्शन निकाल दिए. टेलीकम्युनिकेशन टावर, पाइपलाइन laid outside the factory premises and land, building, or any other civil structure. So they are making it sure in any case you are not eligible for this structure. अब ये क्वेश्चन है कि if I am constructing a building and I have given it on lease, will I be entitled for the credit? So this is one where Odisha High Court has already given a judgment in the case of Swarry Realtors. And on two grounds, they have stated, yes, you are eligible for the credit. Because the simple reason, a builder who construct the building
जी विनीत, ये सर की आवाज नहीं आ रही है। देखिए कोई वेबिनार में प्रॉब्लम है क्या? हेलो हेलो। हाँ जी विनीत, बुक के वेबिनार से विनीत, वॉइस इज नॉट देयर। हाँ मोहन जी।
हाँ जी, हाँ जी।
आप सुन रहे हैं? अच्छा, मैंने कहा सर की आवाज
मैं सुन रहा था, अपना माइक मैंने बंद किया हुआ था और वो भी बंद किया हुआ था, बीच बीच में कोई डिस्टरबेंस नहीं हो, इसलिए मैंने दोनों चीजें बंद की हुई।
हाँ
हाँ जी, हाँ जी।
ये विनीत का नंबर है क्या?
हाँ जी,
बुक के वेबिनार वाले का?
हाँ, क्या करोगे?
इनका नंबर चाहिए, सर की आवाज नहीं आ रही।
सर की आवाज नहीं आ रही
ना?
यस सर।
हाँ हाँ मैडम, देखिए सर की आवाज नहीं आ रही, बत्रा सर की।
वेट सर।
हाँ, चेक करिए।
I think there was some technical glitch.
बैक।
हाँ, ये
I'm back now.
बताओ सर।
वेलकम
मैडम,
बैक।
सर मैडम सर्विस इज ऑलवेज अवेलेबल, वो आपने म्यूट रखती हैं और वो कैमरा नहीं होता, वो बीच में जो ये दिखा रखा ना माइक जो दिखा, वो ये दिखा रखा है, ये मैडम का ही कैमरा है।
समझा नहीं?
ये अभी जो आवाज नहीं आ रही थी, तो ये प्रॉब्लम जो है ना बुक वेबिनार का जो है, इनका कनेक्ट है ये। आप जो भी प्रॉब्लम बोलोगे इमीडिएटली सॉर्ट आउट कर देंगे, मैडम को प्रॉब्लम आपकी समझ में आएगी, उन्होंने सॉर्ट आउट कर दिया। कैरी ऑन। चलिए।
चलिए हम 17.5C की बात कर रहे थे, जब तक हम स्लाइड पे पहुंचते हैं, वो आएगी। तो ये प्लांट एंड मशीनरी में अब एक बहुत बड़ा क्वेश्चन आता है कि आई एम कंस्ट्रक्टिंग ए बिल्डिंग और मैंने वहां लिफ्ट लगाई है, वेदर लिफ्ट विल बी कवर्ड इन प्लांट एंड मशीनरी और नॉट। अकॉर्डिंग टू माय अंडरस्टैंडिंग, till the judgment of the Supreme Court comes, which ultimately will rule the field, you are eligible for the credit. Friends, इस क्लॉज में अगर आप, जैसे मैंने आपसे कहा, एक्सप्लेन करने की कोशिश की, अगर आप वर्क कॉन्ट्रैक्ट को छोड़ के बाकी की सप्लाईज के लिए अलग वो कॉन्ट्रैक्ट कर देंगे, तो उस कॉन्ट्रैक्ट में आप अपनी एलिजिबिलिटी को कम कर सकते हैं। चलिए फ्रेंड्स, नाउ कम्स टू डी। क्योंकि ये वर्क कॉन्ट्रैक्ट सर्विस थी, तो गवर्नमेंट ने इस लूप होल को भी प्लग करने की कोशिश की कि अगर मैं सिर्फ गुड्स एंड सर्विसेज अपने नाम से खरीद लूं और मैं सिर्फ सर्विस का कॉन्ट्रैक्ट दे दूं, तो उन्होंने कह दिया कि इट इज नॉट गोइंग टू मेक ए डिफरेंस, आइदर you purchase the goods and services and even it use it for the purpose of business, even then their credit will not be available. So ये इस loophole को plug करने की कोशिश की गई। और यहाँ ये भी define किया गया, construction includes reconstruction, renovation, addition, alteration or repair also to the extent of capitalization. So meaning thereby, अगर आप chartered accountant के office की repair करवा रहे हैं and you are not capitalizing it, you are only using it for the you are only putting it into the profit and loss account, claiming it as an expense, तो भी इस प्रोविजन के रिगरस नहीं अप्लाई होंगे और आपको क्रेडिट मिल जाएगा. सो अगेन आई एम रिपीटिंग, रिपेयर एंड मेंटेनेंस ऑफ योर office of a chartered accountant to the extent has been charged to the profit and loss account as revenue expenditure, you are eligible for the credit. अब फ्रेंड्स कंपोजिशन लेवी का क्रेडिट नहीं मिलता, बड़ी सिंपल सी बात है. नॉन रेजिडेंट टैक्सेबल पर्सन में है, पर्सनल कंजम्पशन का नहीं मिलता, और ले भी लोगे तो 72 में वापस आ जाएगा. तो ये बाकी इतना इंपॉर्टेंट नहीं है. एच एक क्लॉज है जो बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है, अगर आप कहें तो मैं उसको डील कर सकता हूँ. But before I deal that, I think there are two issues which I promised to discuss with you. That is cross charge in connection with ITC and fake invoice, जिसमें सर्कुलर नंबर 171 आ गया. देखिए फेक इनवॉइसिंग में पहली कंडीशन है, am I audible?
Yes sir, you are audible.
अच्छा चलिए, अब मैं इसको स्क्रीन को बंद कर देता हूँ थोड़ी देर के लिए. सर्कुलर नंबर 171 में उन्होंने ये कहा कि जो आदमी इनवॉइस इशू करता है और सप्लाई नहीं देता, तो कैन देयर बी ए टैक्स लायबिलिटी ऑन द वैल्यू शोन इन द इनवॉइस. इन सिंपल टर्म्स, मैंने 1 लाख रुपए का बिल इशू किया, उस पर मैंने 18% के हिसाब से 18,000 रुपये टैक्स लगाया. Now the question is, can this 18,000 rupees be demanded from me in spite of the fact that I have mentioned that invoice in my GSTR1? Forget about self-admitted liability. उसके अलग consequences हैं. But मैं तो एक simple सी बात कह रहा हूँ कि अगर मैंने ये invoice raise किया और मेरे पे allegation है कि I have issued the invoice, so can there be a tax liability? The department has admitted, once there is the allegation that you have issued the invoice without supply, and the taxable event under the law is making the supply. Supply as defined in section 7, read with charging section 9. I'm not going into that. The fact remains, अगर department का अपना ही allegation है आपने इनवॉइस इशू नहीं किया, आपने इनवॉइस इशू किया, आपने सप्लाई नहीं की. जब मैंने सप्लाई नहीं की, then where is the question of output tax liability? It can never be there. क्या मतलब है, जिस आदमी ने इनवॉइस फेक इनवॉइस की चेन शुरू की, पहला इनवॉइस इशू किया, he is not liable for any consequence. उसने GSTR1 में उसको दिखा भी दिया, in spite of the fact, because the allegation of the department he has not made any supply. So the department admitted, once the taxable event is not there, there cannot be any output tax liability. Then that gentleman can be put into difficulty by imposing penalty under section 122, and he can be subject to prosecution under section 132. We all know prosecution is only when the amount of tax involved is more than 5 crore, that is the arrest provision. And of course, if it is between 2 to 5 crore, then he has to admit it to bail by the officers. तो उसका prosecution तो हो सकता है, arrest अलग part. कि arrest और prosecution को भी अलग-अलग समझना पड़ेगा. Arrest means your personal liberty is being affected. That can be done only when these conditions being satisfied. But you can be prosecuted even 50 lakh rupees. That's a different issue. You can say and take the argument in the court or defense in the court. If there are so many big ships on only for 40 lakh rupees, I am being prosecuted, and others are not being prosecuted, I am being discriminated and all that. वो ठीक है argument है. So उस आदमी को जिसने पहला इनवॉइस इशू किया, फेक इनवॉइस की जर्नी स्टार्ट की, उसके ऊपर 122 में पेनल्टी और 132 में प्रोसिक्यूशन हो सकता है. Now that invoice may have gone to Mr. B. Mr. B is also like Mr. A. He is also not a genuine businessman. क्योंकि फेक इनवॉइस तो कोई डिफाइन नहीं है. उसने भी वो 1 लाख का बिल आया और 1,10,000 रुपए का बिल काट के वो माल मित्तल जी को दे दिया. क्वेश्चन आया कि उस आदमी में भी आप ये कह रहे हो कि उस आदमी ने इनवॉइस इशू किया है और उसने कोई सप्लाई नहीं की, तो देयर कैन नॉट बी एनी आउटपुट टैक्स लायबिलिटी डिमांड इन हिज हैंड्स। तो बी के हाथ में भी आप टैक्स की डिमांड तो नहीं कर सकते। अब क्वेश्चन आया क्रेडिट, क्योंकि उसने क्रेडिट अवेल किया ऑन द फेक इनवॉइस व्हिच हैज बीन इशूड बाय ए। क्या आप उसको क्रेडिट डिनाई कर सकते हैं जब उसकी आउटपुट टैक्स लायबिलिटी नहीं है? और ए के केस में भी आपका एलिगेशन है कि इशूड फेक इनवॉइस को रिसीव मिली नहीं, तो क्रेडिट का तो क्वेश्चन ही नहीं आता। तो जब आउटपुट टैक्स लायबिलिटी नहीं है तो यूटिलाइजेशन ऑफ क्रेडिट इज आल्सो नॉट रिक्वायर्ड और नॉट नीडेड। So he can also not be subject to output tax liability or the denial of ITC. What can be done in his hand? He has committed two default. He has entered the invoice without procuring the goods, for which he can be subject to penalty under section 122, which can go up to the amount of 100% of the tax ought to be evaded. तो 18 रुपए की तो आप पेनल्टी लगा सकते हैं, प्लस प्रोसिक्यूशन कर सकते हैं। Secondly, he has committed another grave offense, wherein he has issued the invoice without supplying the goods. But because the allegation is he has not supplied the goods, output tax liability nahi hai, but second offense is there, so he can be subject to penalty once again under section 122. आप 18 रुपए की पेनल्टी और लगा सकते हैं, and he can be once again prosecuted for that offense. पहले में से बच जाएगा, दूसरे में से कैसे बचेगा? So those are the other things. Anyway, तो उस आदमी पे 36 रुपए की पेनल्टी लग सकती है, एंड ही कैन बी प्रोसिक्यूटेड फॉर 2 ऑफेंसेस बीइंग कमिटेड। उसको दोनों में से अब्सॉल्व होना पड़ेगा, तब वो बाहर निकलेगा प्रोसिक्यूशन से। नंबर 1, रिसीविंग द इनवॉइस विदाउट रिसीविंग द सप्लाई, इशूइंग द इनवॉइस विदाउट डिलीवरिंग द सप्लाई। अब लेट अस से बी इज अ जेन्युइन बिजनेसमैन एंड ही हैज डन दिस ट्रांजैक्शन to minimize this tax liability under income tax law, खर्चा मिलेगा जो भी हमने बिल डाला, and in order to claim the credit, जो claim मिलेगा 18 रुपए का, वो भी उसको मिलेगा। And basically that was the calculation which the businessman used to do. If I will claim or put 100 crore rupees invoices in my books of account, I'll get the benefit of around, let us say 40 crore in income tax. इनकम टैक्स की लायबिलिटी कम हो जाएगी। 18 करोड़ का क्रेडिट मिलेगा 58 करोड़, एंड माय कॉस्ट इज ओनली 4-5 करोड़, सो आई एम अ गेनर ऑफ 56 करोड़। To out this calculation, department has taken various steps which I'll come to bit later on, पर अभी हम समझ रहे हैं कि उस ट्रांजैक्शन में वो जेन्युइन आदमी था और उसने क्रेडिट क्लेम कर लिया, तब उसने क्या किया? जो उसने एक्चुअल सप्लाई की आउटवर्ड की, उस पे उसकी जो टैक्स लायबिलिटी थी, उसने इसमें फेक क्रेडिट को एडजस्ट करके डिफरेंस अमाउंट पे किया। यानी उसने 1000 करोड़ रुपए की सेल की, 180 करोड़ की लायबिलिटी थी, 18 करोड़ रुपए का फेक इनवॉइस था, उसने 162 करोड़ रुपए डिपार्टमेंट को दिए, प्लस जेन्युइन वन, एज्यूमिंग दिस इज द ओनली क्रेडिट। अब इस आदमी के हाथ में रॉन्ग अवेलमेंट ऑफ क्रेडिट की भी डिमांड निकलेगी, बिकॉज उसने उस क्रेडिट को रिड्यूस किया आउट ऑफ द आउटपुट टैक्स लायबिलिटी, और वो टैक्स जो उसने और लोगों से इकट्ठा किया था उसमें से 18 करोड़ रुपए कम करके सरकार को जमा कराया। तो ये जो बी, जो जेन्युइन सप्लायर था, जिसने उस इनवॉइस को यूज किया फॉर द पर्पस ऑफ रिड्यूसिंग हिज इनकम टैक्स लायबिलिटी एंड आल्सो फॉर द पर्पस ऑफ एक्सेस क्लेम ऑफ क्रेडिट, तो उसके हाथ में 18 करोड़ रुपए का तो ये आईटीसी जाएगा, प्लस बिकॉज he has claimed the credit on the basis of invoice for which the supply has never been received by him, he will also be subject to penalty under section 122 and subject to prosecution under section 132. तो अब इस कैलकुलेशन को सरकार ने दिमाग में रख के 271 AAD इनकम टैक्स में इंट्रोड्यूस कर दिया। उन्होंने कहा कि in case these kind of transactions are there, then you are liable to pay penalty to the amount of transaction, not tax. हम 100 करोड़ की बात करें तो पेनल्टी 100 करोड़ रुपए लगेगी, और 37 में while computing your taxable income, जिस 100 करोड़ रुपए खर्चा भी नहीं मिलेगा, उस पर भी टैक्स की डिमांड निकलेगी, प्लस consequences, penalty, prosecution, etc. That will also follow income tax law. So the government has been playing smart, और उन्होंने बिजनेसमैन की कैलकुलेशन को बहाल कर दिया। तीसरा, इस बात को भी समझ लें कि आगे अगर कोई ये फेक इनवॉइस जो ए था, दैट वाज द ब्रेन चाइल्ड ऑफ मिस्टर बत्रा। ए तो पीएन था, ड्राइवर था, छोटे लेवल का आदमी था, गांव से आया था, उसके नाम पे फर्म बना ली गई। मास्टरमाइंड मिस्टर बत्रा थे। तो पहले तो वो कहते थे भैया बिल उसने इशू किया, प्रोसिक्यूशन करना तो उसको करो, क्रेडिट इसने लिया बी ने, इसको इसका आईटीसी दो, मेरा क्या मतलब है। So now section 132 has been amended. So any person at whose instance these transactions are carried out, he can also be subject to prosecution. Not only that, any person at whose instance this transaction carried out and who has taken any benefit out of these transactions. So they have tried to cover all those bicholias. They may be professional also, and some of the professionals are being into difficulty because of this provision only. So now this is the circular number 171. Prior to that, जब डिपार्टमेंट कॉन्ट्राडिक्ट स्टैंड लेता था, एक्साइज लॉ में भी, सर्विस टैक्स में भी, सेल्स टैक्स में भी ऐसा होता था, फेक इनवॉइसिंग एंड ऑल दैट, तो डिपार्टमेंट से केस जीतना आसान था. नाउ फॉर द गाइडेंस ऑफ द ऑफिसर्स, they have issued this circular number 171. I'll suggest everybody to read about that. Then I am coming to the concept of cross charge. So मेरे पास पिछले 3 दिन में 3 members आ चुके हैं, 3 प्रोफेशनल ब्रदर, जहां उन्होंने कहा सर क्रॉस चार्ज का इशू आ रहा है. देखिए, जैसे मैंने कहा था, डिस्टिंक्ट पर्सन करके सेल्फ सप्लाई को क्यों टैक्स बनाया गया, क्यों टैक्स लगाया गया? वो इसलिए कहीं क्रेडिट मिसयूज नहीं हो, कास्केडिंग इफेक्ट, सॉरी, क्रेडिट की चेन ना टूटे, कास्केडिंग इफेक्ट नहीं आना चाहिए. एक जलंधर की फैक्ट्री है, 10 करोड़ रुपए की उसने हौजरी मैन्युफैक्चर की, 6 करोड़ रुपए का उसमें टैक्सेबल सप्लाई थी, 6 करोड़ रुपए का उसका लेट अस से 100 करोड़ का बिजनेस था, 60 करोड़ की सप्लाई थी, 10% टैक्स रेट है, 6 करोड़ रुपए का उसका आईटीसी आ गया और आउटपुट टैक्स लायबिलिटी है 10 करोड़ रुपए. पर वो माल तो यहाँ बिकना नहीं है लुधियाना में, तो उसने 3 शोरूम खोल लिए, फरीदाबाद, नोएडा और गुड़गांव, और वहां 9 करोड़ का माल ट्रांसफर कर दिया. अब लुधियाना में लायबिलिटी है 1 करोड़ की, क्रेडिट है 6 करोड़. अब जब वहां गया माल तीनों शोरूम में, वहां लायबिलिटी है, वहां क्रेडिट नहीं है, तो इसीलिए स्टॉक ट्रांसफर का कंसेप्ट खत्म करके उन्होंने ये कहा कि आप जब अपने यूनिट को भी माल भेजेंगे, जो रजिस्टर्ड यूनिट, तो भी आपको टैक्स देना है. तो वो जो 6 करोड़ का जो क्रेडिट था, वो 9 करोड़ की बिलिंग में 9 करोड़ बन के चला गया, और जब उसने 10 करोड़ की वहां पे सेल की तो उसने वहां पे क्रेडिट उसका ले लिया. तो ये तो एक कंसेप्ट था डिस्टिंक्ट पर्सन का, ताकि मेरा जो क्रेडिट है मैन्युफैक्चरिंग स्टेज पे या एक पर्टिकुलर स्टेज पे, वो वेस्ट नहीं हो, कास्केडिंग इफेक्ट नहीं आए और वो चेन चलती रहे. इसी तरह से क्रॉस चार्ज इसका रिवर्स है, थोड़ा समझने की कोशिश करेंगे. क्रॉस चार्ज इसका रिवर्स है. मान लीजिए मैं दिल्ली में बैठा हूं, मैं इंपोर्ट करता हूं माल चाइना से, और सारा माल मैं बॉम्बे, कलकत्ता, मद्रास में बेच देता हूं. अब क्योंकि मैं इंपोर्ट करता हूं, मेरे उसमें बिजनेस सीक्रेट्स हैं, बिजनेस रिक्वायरमेंट्स हैं, बिजनेस कुछ प्रिंसिपल हैं, या मेरे कुछ फार्मूलाज हैं जो मैं नहीं बताना चाहता पब्लिक को. मैं यहाँ बैठा हूँ, मैं सारा काम ये करता हूँ. बट दोज प्रोडक्ट्स आर, लेट अस से एफएमसीजी प्रोडक्ट है, जिनकी वारंटी होती है, उनकी लाइफ 2 साल 3 साल है. नाउ इन ऑर्डर टू प्रोवाइड माय कस्टमर्स और क्लाइंट्स एफिशिएंट सर्विसेज, मैंने वहां बॉम्बे, कलकत्ता, मद्रास में अपने सेंटर खोल लिए, जो कस्टमर जिनको मैं माल वहां बेचता हूँ उनको वहां ठीक करते हैं. अब इन तीनों सेंटर पे आई एम स्पेंडिंग लॉट ऑफ मनी. व्हेन आई एम स्पेंडिंग लॉट ऑफ मनी, तो वहां क्रेडिट है, वहां रेवेन्यू तो कोई है ही नहीं, तो वो क्रेडिट वेस्ट हो जाएगा. सारा रेवेन्यू मेरा दिल्ली में बुक हो रहा है, सर्विसेज मैं बेंगलोर, कलकत्ता और तमिलनाडु से भी दे रहा हूं, तो वहां का जो क्रेडिट है दैट विल गो वेस्ट. तो सरकार ने क्या कहा कि बहुत डिस्टिंक्ट पर्सन्स हैं, जब आपका रेवेन्यू नहीं है, यही काम आप किसी और के लिए करते तो भी आप उससे रेवेन्यू लेते. नाउ यू आर वर्किंग फॉर दी हेड ऑफिस दिल्ली, तो अब दिल्ली वाले को बिलिंग करो. जब उन्होंने दिल्ली वालों को उसकी 200 रुपए की बिलिंग कर दी, तो 200 रुपए 20 रुपए टैक्स लगा, तो मुझे क्रेडिट मिल गया. और वो जो क्रेडिट मेरा एक्रू हुआ था बेंगलोर में, तमिलनाडु में, या बॉम्बे में वो क्रेडिट भी मैंने यूज कर लिया. सो दिस इज क्रॉस चार्ज. अब प्रॉब्लम क्या आ रही है, जहां तक इंटर यूनिट सर्विसेज का क्वेश्चन है, वहां लोगों ने क्रॉस चार्ज नहीं किया हुआ. एज ए रिजल्ट ऑफ विच डिपार्टमेंट कह रहा है यू बोथ आर टू डिस्टिंक्ट पर्सन्स. अब यहाँ एक सेट ऑफ केसेस ऐसे हैं जहां वो क्रेडिट अगर मैं देता तो मुझे क्रेडिट मिल जाता. फॉर एग्जांपल यही केस था, सारा रिवेन्यू मेरा दिल्ली में बुक हुआ था. अगर मैं 200 रुपए का बिल देता बॉम्बे को, तो 20 रुपए जो मैं उसको देता जीएसटी के, उसका मैं क्रेडिट ले लेता. सो इस सिचुएशन, तो वहां उन्होंने क्या कहा, अगर आपने क्रेडिट आपको मिलना है तो हम एक प्रोविजो डाल रहे हैं इन रूल 28 सेकंड प्रोविजो, जो ये कहता है इफ द सप्लाई बिटवीन टू डिस्टिंक्ट पर्सन्स and the credit is available, then invoice value shall be treated as declared value, fair market value. तो हम कहते हैं ठीक है, हम तो 1 रुपए का इनवॉइस दे देते हैं, उसके ऊपर जो इंटरेस्ट पेनल्टी लगा लो. But real difficulty arises when this credit is not available. In that case, the benefit of second proviso is not there, and the department is proposing demand on the market value of that service. If those parameters are not there, they are looking at your profit and loss account, your expense plus 10%. They're proposing the penalty. So kindly take this into consideration while filing your 99C, because you are doing that job. So I thought with regard to tax credit, I should also deal with that. Now I'll come to the question answer hurriedly, because I think the time is likely to be over. Whether ITC is available when goods are sold under a scheme such as buy one get one. Yes, because of the paucity of time, I could not deal with that subject. देखिए, nothing comes free in this world. You have to say, I am charging a single consideration for the supply of two goods. Then there's no doubt these two goods have been purchased by me. I am eligible for the credit. The only problem is when I sell a particular product which is taxable at 12%, and I want to give a free things which is taxable at 28%. मान लीजिए मैंने एक 100 रुपए की शर्ट दी जिसपे टैक्स मान लीजिए 18 रुपए, और मैं उस पर घड़ी गिफ्ट दे रहा हूँ जो 28% की है, तो किस रेट पे टैक्स लगेगा? देखिए, बिकॉज घड़ी और शर्ट both are independent supplies, they are not composite, not naturally bundled. So in that case, you are taking a risk. The department can tax the whole consideration at 28%, which is the provision for the mixed supply case. इससे बेटर आइडिया है, अगर आपने कोई भी डिस्प्यूट नहीं करना, आप दोनों शर्टों का प्राइस लिखिए. लेट अस से एक शर्ट पे एक फ्री है, 1000 रुपए की शर्ट, दूसरी शर्ट 1200 रुपए की 2200. You want to give a discount of 50%, right? Discount 50%, 1100. So the price is 1100. Absolutely, you're liable to pay GST on 1100 only, and you are saying I will charge you 1100. So by making the invoice in this manner, even that kind of a litigation will be avoided, and the department will be totally at defense. Now I'm coming to the chat box. Is there any question in chat box? चलिए ब्रजेश जी, अब मैं कंक्लूड कर रहा हूँ. आप पूछ लीजिए, किसी ने कोई क्वेश्चन पूछना हो, हैंड रेस करना हो तो हैंड रेस कर दे, अदरवाइज चैट बॉक्स में क्वेश्चन पूछना चाहे. So sir, kindly guide me. IT is available item wise basis or value basis on goods. Sir, how can it be item wise basis? Whatever goods you are buying, you are certainly eligible for the tax which you have paid. Classification cannot be challenged in the hands of recipient. आपने जो घड़ी गिफ्ट दी वो भी खरीदी होगी, जो शर्ट बेची वो भी खरीदी होगी, दोनों का क्रेडिट मिलेगा. The only thing is output supply, because of mixed supply, will become taxable at a higher rate. So it will not be advisable to do that. घड़ी के साथ घड़ी फ्री दे दीजिए, कोई इशू नहीं है, या कोई ऐसी आइटम दे दीजिए which is taxable at same rate, or you can provide discount. If you say cloth or shirt 1000 रुपया, घड़ी 1500 रुपये, which is taxable at 28%, total 2500, discount 1000. Then this 1000 discount will be treated given on for 2500 rupees. That means 40%. 600 rupees will be taxable at 18%. and rest of the amount after 60% of 2,500, that is 1,500 will be taxable at 28%. That will be the formula which will be followed by the department. So Brijesh ji, now you can take over.
हाँ सर, एक क्वेश्चन है, if by mistake we have shown excess RCM liability and paid excess liability, can we claim input of excess RCM liability paid?
Why not?
Yes.
No problem.
तो सर ने बहुत अच्छी तरह से हम लोगों को समझाया, क्लॉज बाय क्लॉज डिस्कशन किया और क्वेश्चन आंसर्स भी बहुत अच्छी तरह से हमको एक्सप्लेन किया। एक मेंबरशिप के बारे में बताना चाहूँगा, जो एक मैसेज आप लोगों को 1,000 रुपये का पहुँचा है, तो वो 1,000 रुपये जो है वो फॉर 2022 के लिए का मतलब ही नहीं दिसंबर में खत्म हो गए, ये 12 महीने के लिए। आप जब भी ज्वाइन करोगे उसके 12 मंथ्स तक ये एप्लीकेबल रहेगा। और अभी क्योंकि आप देख ही रहे हैं कि कैसे 200 से ऊपर अभी नोट कर रहा था, 206 पार्टिसिपेंट ने अभी पार्टिसिपेट किया और अभी भी 186 200 प्रेजेंट है। तो अभी हम लोग वेबिनार कंटिन्यू करेंगे और अभी आने वाले समय में विद इन 1 मंथ 5 वेबिनार्स की प्लानिंग है जो आप सब लोगों को दिए जाएंगे, जिससे कि सबका लर्निंग भी काफ़ी अच्छी रहेगी और CPRs भी पूरे रहेंगे। हाँ मोहन जी।
अभी नेक्स्ट जो सेमिनार है ब्रजेश जी, वी आर प्लानिंग फॉर 7th, डिटेल्स अभी होस्ट कर देंगे, वो इज प्रिपेयरिंग द डॉक्यूमेंट्स। और अभी क्योंकि इंस्टीट्यूट ने मैंडेटरी कर दिया है हर सेमिनार के लिए अगर 2 घंटे की CPRs प्रोग्राम है तो देयर शुड बी मैंडेटरली शुड चार्ज 100 रुपीज फीस, और मेंबर शुड बी द मेंबर ऑफ स्टडी सर्कल। तो अकॉर्डिंगली अब हर सेमिनार में ये पेमेंट रहेगा, क्योंकि अभी हमें भी इतना आइडिया नहीं था, बट आगे आई होप कि सब लोग इसी तरीके से इसको कंटिन्यू करेंगे। बत्रा जी ने पूरे 2 घंटे हमारे को पूरे किए, जस्टिफाइड है पूरा 2 घंटा। हम ये नहीं कह सकते कि हमने कोई 1 घंटे सेमिनार की और 2 घंटे का टाइम किया, ऐसा नहीं है। बत्रा जी
सबसे पहले सर आ गए थे, 3 बजे से पहले सर की प्रेजेंस थी।
तो मेरा ख्याल सभी क्वेश्चंस आंसर सभी एड्रेस हो गए हैं। बत्रा जी का बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। और अब मेरा ख्याल ब्रजेश जी आप कंक्लूड कर दो प्रोग्राम को। आप
तो मैं सब पार्टिसिपेंट्स का शुक्रिया करना चाहता हूँ सेंट्रल दिल्ली स्टडी सर्कल की तरफ से। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद, आप लोग आए इस ज्ञान की गंगा को प्राप्त करने के लिए। और बत्रा जी का मैं स्पेशल थैंक करना चाहता हूँ, हु इज़ आवर स्पीकर टुडे। और मैं आग्रह करूँगा कि हम जब भी आपको बुलाएं तो कृपया हमें अनुग्रहित करें अपनी प्रेजेंस से।
ब्रजेश जी मैं एक चीज और कहना चाहूंगा, मेंबर्स को अगर कोई सजेशन देना हो तो मेरे नंबर पे या जो मेंबर नंबर आपको भेजा गया उस पे या ब्रजेश जी के पे कांटेक्ट कर लो, क्योंकि 1 to 1 तो मुलाकात होती नहीं है। जब तक आप कोई भी सजेशन हमें देना चाहें या कोई भी प्रॉब्लम है जो आप फेस कर रहे हो जिसको हम ठीक कर सकते हो, तो आप हमसे उस व्हाट्सएप के थ्रू कांटेक्ट कर लीजिए।
बिल्कुल।
थैंक यू।
मेरा नंबर भी आप सब लोगों के पास होगा ही नहीं है, मैं एक बार फिर से बोल देता हूँ, मैं यहाँ लिख देता हूँ सबके लिए। और आप में से जो भी मेरे से कोई भी बात है कहना चाहता हो, कोई सेशन देना चाहता हो, वो प्लीज़ मेरे को बताइएगा। 8860590110, ये मैंने अपना नंबर दे दिया है। सो विद दिस अगेन वंस थैंकिंग फॉर एवरीबडी एंड स्पेशली टू आवर गेस्ट स्पीकर बत्रा साहब। Thank you so much. I request आप वेबिनार अब क्लोज कर सकते हैं।
ओके सर।